Podcast Network.
Maybe we can still heal you. Why? So you can just lock me up? No. Just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that jumped from the ships. 'Cause they knew death was better than bondage.
Oh, you think darkness is your ally? You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it. I didn't see the light until I was already a man. By then it was nothing to me but blinding. The shadows betray you because they belong to me.
In the hell do you think you are?
Okay, it's not working out. I'm gonna need the suit back.
For how long?
Forever. Yeah, let's have
No,
this.
please.
Let's have it.
You don't understand. This is all I have. I'm nothing without this suit.
If you're nothing without this suit, then you shouldn't have it, okay?
So Oz. Oh, Oz isn't here. Shocker. Looks like the Uncle Oz has bailed on us again. But I just wanted to let everyone know that boy, Regular Scott, is here to bring you another episode of Take a Knee for Marvel vs. DC. I had a really cool intro planned with Uncle Oz, and we had a special guest, my good friend JD from the Showdown Pro Wrestling Podcast, my co-host. And Uncle Oz bailed on me again 2 weeks in a row, but we do still have the episode. This is going to be a wrestling-filled episode. It was an invasion of the Showdown Pro Wrestling Podcast, so I hope you enjoy it. This was a lot of fun. It was really cool to kick back and just talk wrestling again with JD and have a really just a Showdown Pro type podcast on the Take a Knee platform. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Uncle Oz, wherever you are, dude, I hope I talk to you soon, big guy. But everybody else, enjoy the show. Make sure you check out JD. Follow us on Twitter, Knee for Marvel vs. DC. That's the number 4. Email us, Knee for Marvel vs. DC. All emails and Killmonger conversations will be answered next week, whether Oz is here or not. They might turn into the regular conversations. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But here's the show for this week. Check it out. And we are back. And yes, the show has been officially taken over. The invasion is complete. And I am here with my Showdown Pro Wrestling Podcast co-host, JD. Welcome back to the show. It's been way too long. I'm very excited.
New world order. Always wanted to do that. Yeah, man, I'm excited. We have not talked since the last time I was on when I was business stuff, but we haven't talked wrestling in forever. And I'm excited to actually have a conversation with you and not 14 different strands on Twitter that it becomes impossible to follow after 20 minutes.
And you know, I bet you people think that like
we hate each other.
Yeah, I bet you people think we just genuinely hate each other on Twitter too.
I know, and you're like one of my best friends on Twitter, and I'm like, no, I try to explain to like, no, we're like really good friends. Like, you can only talk to your friends like with that level of like, come on, man, what are you thinking?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's great, and I've had a few people, tell me that they've been seeing the Twitter interactions so much that it's made them almost miss the show. So this will be a nice little taste, hopefully, of things to come in the future. So.
Okay.
JD, why don't you plug all your stuff, man? You've definitely been on your grind, and you've got a couple new things on your table now.
I'm too busy. I'll talk, since this is a wrestling, well, I'll talk books first. First and foremost, I'm a novelist. I've got 6 books out to my credit right now. We wrapped a Kickstarter back in September for a book called Harvest Moon. I just actually finished the order for the print book, so they should literally be at my doorstep any minute, so anybody that ordered them should be getting them soon. I'm very excited about that. I'm officially wide. By the time this thing gets posted, it'll be the last day of a free book campaign we got going on with Kobo. Kobo is an Amazon rival based out of Germany, but they're real big in Canada. But you can go with them anywhere. If you get the Kobo app, you can get the Book of Jericho, Volume 1 in my Books of Jericho series for free tomorrow. It's been a really good promotion for us. We've given away a bunch of books, and there's 5 more books to come after that. And I'm in the process of finishing up the 6th one right now. So that's my normal day to day. I write books. On the side, I'm kind of back in the game of writing wrestling online. I work for Fight Game Media, and Fight Game's been around for a while, but kind of the captain of our ship, Garrett Gonzalez, decided to expand the roster, so to say, and he brought in a whole bunch of writers, myself included. And what makes Fight Game cool is we just don't talk about pro wrestling. It's the fight game. We cover MMA, we cover boxing, we cover pro wrestling. And what I did when I came on, my buddy Justin Nipper, he was a guest on our Showdown show about a year ago. He brought me on because he wanted me to cover amateur wrestling. So I've brought amateur wrestling onto the page on top of doing some pro wrestling stuff. And it was about a year since I really wrote like sports writing again. So I wrote a couple, simple pieces. And then this week, I'm pretty proud that I've had 2 of the most read articles in the site's history this week.
Oh, wow.
On Monday. Yeah, the one exploded. The one I kind of cheated because it was a piece about a U.S. Greco-Roman amateur athlete by the name of Joe Rao, a guy that I coached when he was in high school and who's now trying to make the 2021 now Olympic team. Would have had it for sure if it was 2020, then the COVID happened, and he has just an amazing story. So I got to cover him on Monday. And then Friday, we released a piece on where I got to interview Impact Wrestling's executive vice president, Don Callis. Some older wrestling fans might remember him as Cyrus from ECW or the Jackal from WWF. He's now in charge of Impact Wrestling, and his relationship with Kenny Omega. So I got to spend about 30 minutes on a Skype call with Don Callis, and I got an email from Kenny Omega giving me some quotes for this piece. And man, I worked my ass off on trying to write something really good for this because I just knew with the guys involved, it was going to get some traction. So I was like, okay, this has got to be like one of the best things I've ever written. And man, I think I did a decent job. Like it's kind of caught some fire. I've had a few like the main pro wrestling sources are taking quotes from what I saw, like Fightful and Sean Rassap was talking about a quote that Don Callis got where he says that Impact would have signed Kenny Omega if AEW hadn't come around. Like that, if that's the big news that comes out of that story, cool. But that's pretty cool. And then the Wrestling Observer, Dave Meltzer's site, you put it on there, and they're helping promote it around, and it's gotten a lot of good coverage right now. So I'm really happy. The coolest part was I got to tell a story about 2 guys who consider themselves family. Don Callis was trained by Kenny Omega's uncle, the Golden Sheik, in Winnipeg, and they just have this real like father-son type relationship, and it was really cool listening to him talk about that, and just getting to share a different side of story was really good. And I think it kind of plays into my strengths a little bit because I'm not really a journalist. Like I'm not really interested in breaking news or anything like that. I really just like telling stories. So, yeah, that was fun. That's been a fun week. I'm out of ideas though, so I have no idea what I'm going to do next week. So,
I'm sure you'll find something to do.
I have to. It's a job. So I don't know what, but I mean, at the moment it was cool because I kind of it was fun because earlier in the week I kind of needled a promoter from another promotion that I had contact with before, and he said, we don't know if your social media channels are big enough for us. And I kind of went, oh, yeah. I'm like, oh, you're going to big time me. Okay, yeah. Pretty cool. And then on Monday, Don Callis from Impact Wrestling DMs me and says, do you want this story? And I said, yes, I do. So,
And let me say that your story did more to make me like Kenny Omega than anything Kenny Omega has done himself. Like,
Kenny Omega is a different dude.
It humanized him, man. Like it made him seem like a good dude who looked out for his people, and I appreciated that.
It did. I was really taken aback by it too. There's something about Kenny Omega where I've never spoken to the man myself, but I mean, like he's very guarded, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. Like he's very that's the big critique on Kenny Omega is he's very pejorative, he's very performative in everything he does, and wonder if that's like a defense mechanism or something like that with him. Like, there's something interesting going on there, and I would love the chance to actually talk to the real person, like Tyson Smith, the guy behind Kenny Omega. I think he's a fascinating human being, and I really would like to have a conversation with him. Don Callis is super, man, that's the easiest interview I ever did. I just shut my mouth for like 30 minutes, and he just told me everything, and I just kind of nodded. It was a weird Skype call. It was me just nodding my head up and down for 30 minutes. But, it was really cool. It was a fun piece to write.
No, that's great. And that's actually a really good segue and a good place to start. AEW. I mean, that's obviously, the big kind of boom company of 2020. I think they really made their mark. Everybody's talking about, they'll be gone in 3 to 5 years. Nah, they're going to be here. I think this is a mainstay. JD, how do you think they've done, in their first full year? How do you think they've done? How do you think their TV is? And, what are you excited for in the future?
So 2020 has been an interesting year with AEW specifically because they're not WWE. WWE is this monolith company. It's like the Titanic. Like, it took a lot to bring the Titanic down, and it took forever for the Titanic to crash, right? Because it's just so damn big. AEW is a very different company. Like, it's more of a true pro wrestling promotion, like in the old school sense. Like, they live and die on wrestling. So I didn't know how they'd react to this world. That's funny. We're going to talk about a lot of different companies. Every single one of them has handled this differently. AEW, in about the month before, or 2 months before the COVID hit, they signed this real big deal with Turner that kind of gave them new life, right? Like, because there were some questions. The end of 2019 was not good for AEW. They put on, I think, 2 weeks in a row of just some, let's be real, terrible television. And they rebounded it great in January 2020. Some super high ratings, and TNT, said, well, we're just going to go with this. And they gave them a 5-year contract and a lot more money. So they're around. That said, it's been an up and down year for the company, logistically speaking. They figured out for everyone else that, having wrestlers around the ring to kind of cheat a crowd works. And it does. It gave the AEW shows, especially over the spring and summer, a lot of life that they might not have had. Booking has been a challenge for them, as it is for anybody, with the COVID. And they're pretty honest. Like, they'll come out there and say, like, Lance Archer's got the COVID. Can't have, he's not going to be on the show. And that derails like 3 weeks of TV. That being said, I think AEW has done very, very well. I would give them a solid B+ for how they've handled this. Like, they're averaging roughly between 90 and 100,000 buys per pay-per-view. The show they just had last week, Full Gear, outdrew last year's Full Gear, which was headlined by Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega and Cody Rhodes and Chris Jericho. Those were big matches for the company. This pay-per-view outdrew that by like 20,000 buys. So they have a super loyal audience, right? It hasn't
very
been
impressive, man. Like, that's a lot of buys for today's pay-per-view market.
It's the most that a non-WWE wrestling promotion has had since the dying days of WCW, and it's out. They typically outdraw most of WCW's 2000 output. And again, this is a different world. Like, wrestling fans aren't conditioned to buy pay-per-views, let alone $50 pay-per-views anymore, right? So they're really kind of swimming upstream to get this going, and they have loyal fans, right? Like, they have fans who are emotionally invested in seeing this product succeed. I'm one of them. I like the company. It's my favorite U.S.-based company. It's not without its flaws. Don't get me wrong, but I think the positives. Jon Moxley is the biggest star in the company. Like, he's become their poster child, which is weird because when the company started, people thought it was going to be Cody or Kenny and Chris Jericho, and Jon Moxley has, leaps and bounds exceeded them. Like, he's adopted this almost like Harley Race type role as the AEW World Champion. Like, you see Jon Moxley's also the IWGP New Japan US Champion. Like, he went and did the main event of Bloodsport, the indie pay-per-view that was last month. Great match against Chris Dickinson. Like, he's out there really doing the work of like a traveling champion. Like, he feels like what the NWA champion used to be before the 80s boom. Like, and he is like, there's been a lot of talk like, oh, Moxley should lose the title. Like, there's like, oh, he should lose to Archer. He should lose to Cage. He should lose to Eddie Kingston. It's like, and people say that because like we live in this world, especially on Twitter, where everyone's like, everyone should get a turn as the champ. And I don't believe in that. Like, I think your top star should be the top guy. And Jon Moxley is their top guy right now. Like, he's the biggest needle mover. Like, his shows with him on top of the company, their biggest pay-per-view is All Out is this year's Double or Nothing, when it was him and Brody Lee. You know, a match that had to be put together kind of on the fly. Like, Moxley is a legit star. He's carried his WWE cachet over into, I guess you call him the indies, and remade himself into something different. The Jon Moxley character is a lot different than the Dean Ambrose character. He works different, carries himself different. And he does have that. The one thing he did take from WWE is that era of how to carry yourself as a star, right? Mm-hmm. And that's like the best thing that AEW has going right now is Jon Moxley. He just finished this feud with Eddie Kingston that was fantastic, and it was like a callback to wrestling of the 70s and 80s, where it was just two dudes laying their hearts out on the line, you know, just to talk about, and they talked you into getting excited for a match that there was like really no doubt who was going to win. But the promos were so good, and Eddie Kingston more than carried his end of that to make this feud interesting. So I think their world title picture is really, really in a good spot right now. Kenny Omega just won their challenge tournament. I wouldn't call it a G1 style tournament. It's more of an 8-man simple kind of thing. Really great match with Hangman Page last week on the pay-per-view. And this is what's interesting, is on December 2nd, Dynamite, Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega are going to wrestle for that title. They're not going to hold, which is the next pay-per-view is not till February, so that's a long time to carry that out. But I find it interesting that they're going to give us, honestly, the biggest match in the company's history on TV.
You think that's the biggest match in the company's history?
Yeah, 100%.
See, I think they still haven't done the biggest match in the company's history. Mox versus Cody is the match.
No, I agree with that, and Cody's been laying some seeds with that. But that's not going to be for the title. And when that does happen, you are correct. That will be a gigantic match. But right now, the way it's looking right now with what Moxley is now and what Kenny Omega is now is much different than what it was a year ago.
I agree.
So Moxley is bigger. Kenny's kind of, by his own design, which I still don't understand why. This will go to my negatives. Not as big, but he's on the comeback, which is good. So I think they're going to it's going to draw a number. NXT has taught us that if you load up the show, you're going to get a number. And I think they're doing this because December was a really bad month for them last year. Like, just December TV in general, ratings aren't great. Like, just for anything. And AEW really did take a tumble last December. They rebounded in January, but I don't think they want that. So they're coming with the best match they can put out right now. And the biggest match they can put out right now is that world title match. And I have my own thoughts on why, and we can get into that later, why they're doing that. But I think that as far as the world title picture goes, and with Jon Moxley, I think that's all moving in the right direction.
I like all that. And, the only thing I really, even though Mox is the guy right now, I think Cody is the face of that company.
I think that Cody's trying really hard to be the face of the company.
And maybe that's what it is. That he's trying really hard to be.
He does. He struggles in the role. Cody's a more natural heel. But, he's the very corporate. It's interesting to me because Cody's the very corporate guy, right? Like, he's good looking. He speaks really well. He says and does all the right things. And then you've got Jon Moxley, who's gritty, kind of nasty, surly, but there's just something about Cody, and I like Cody Rhodes, but there's something about him that does kind of feel artificial at times. When he's in the ring cutting a promo, like, stuff can feel really genuine, like you really feel it. But in other environments, there's something about Cody that feels protected, Mm-hmm. Whereas with Jon Moxley, like, with my fight game media compatriot Jon Moxley, he
nice
crazy
name
to say that.
There.
Oh my God, I'm dropping that forever.
I love it.
Jon Moxley does MMA podcasts with my buddy Justin Nipper and Garrett Gonzalez on Fight Game Media. Can't believe we work for the same place. How crazy is that?
And that just kind of, like, side note, like, that just kind of happened, right? While they were doing a separate podcast, this just kind of happened with him, right?
He was on The Observer because Garrett's an Observer guy. Garrett's one of Dave Meltzer's right-hand guys, and then he's got his own thing with Fight Game on the side, and Moxley and him had a conversation about MMA, and Jon Moxley loves MMA. So he's actually pretty knowledgeable. So he trains at, Couture Extreme in Vegas. So, he knows He's really worked I don't know if you've gotten to watch, but he's really worked a lot of MMA into his pro wrestling. It's really helped elevate him.
He's got a movie coming out where he's doing MMA
playing
as well.
Yeah, and let's. I'm going to hold off to talk about how good an actor he is until I see the thing. I'm bullish on that.
Well, I think he's playing himself.
He's playing a fighter that's pretty much Jon Moxley with a different name. It's very much like Thunder Lips in Rocky 3, you know? Mm-hmm. Like one of those type of deals. What I think. I could be wrong, but that's what it looks like. But he's a great podcaster, man. Like, he's so raw and real, and I'm not a big MMA fan, but I listen to the podcast, one, because it's my guys, and two, because I just think he's entertaining. So I think there's this dichotomy between the two, between Cody Rhodes and Jon Moxley, and Cody Rhodes has taken a couple passive-aggressive swipes at Moxley in some like mainstream interviews lately, saying, yeah, Moxley, he could carry the TNT title. Like, of course he could carry the TNT title. He's your world champion. Right. But I mean, like, there's little digs like that. It's like, okay, I see where they're going. It's going to happen. It's probably not for another year down the line, right? I think that's where we're headed. So I think that is going to be the big thing. But for right now, it's going to be Moxley and Omega. And I think what they're going to do is deliver a New Japan style big match on the second.
So I wonder how you do that, though. Like, how do you get to? Because I guess we both agree that Mox Cody is the big match that they're building to. It has to be a heel Cody because that's where the money is.
Absolutely.
How do you do that match? Because I think that match would have to be the main event. How do you do that match, and what world title match can you put on to compete with that? Like, who in that company could you put on to compete with that as a world title match?
With Kenny as the world champion, it opens up, because what I would expect is Moxley and Cody to not be for a title. Mm-hmm. I would expect that because, one, Cody can't challenge for a world title. Like, he's already said, I'm not going to do that. And he's taken himself out of the TNT title thing for right now. Elevated Darby, great stuff. Talk about that later. So I think the way you do it is you just do a personal rivalry thing between the two of them. When do you do that? My hunch would be Double or Nothing. That's their biggest show of the year. Right, that's the AEW launching pay-per-view. I think that's what you do.
Okay.
Now, who do you put Kenny in the title match for? That depends. Do I think there's anybody else who's ready to be a world champion challenger at the moment? Not really. I mean, like, you could say Hangman, but Hangman's not ready to be there yet. They just brought Pac back, and he came off like an absolute superstar. But they've got a lot of history together, so it's not really intriguing. I don't know if that forbidden door can open, and if this COVID shit goes away, maybe Okada. That's the fan in me talking. But if you want to have a double main event in AEW for Double or Nothing, your biggest show of the year, I can't think of anything bigger than Moxley Rhodes and then Omega Okada 5.
So, maybe that is the big in-game that Tony Khan is hyping up, because he's put out a couple tweets where he's like, the shift is coming and I have these aces up my sleeve.
That's promoter. That's just promoter hyping. I take nothing to promoter. Anyone says anything. Maybe it's just the pessimist in me, the cynic that's been watching pro wrestling for nearly 30 years. Anytime anyone, I'm like, you're working me. And I never, like I said last time, like, this is nothing.
Well,
nothing's going to happen.
Pac did re-debut, so he did return.
That is not a shift in the pro wrestling landscape.
No,
I love Pac. I'm a huge Pac fan. But I mean, like, they got to get better. And that's something that they don't do very well, is they don't manage expectations very well.
Like, I was expecting somebody from New Japan. Genuinely, I watched the end of that show because I was like, I was like, man, I know he's hyping up something because he's got something big coming. So I just knew somebody from New Japan was coming.
You're a basketball guy. Shaq. They're going to do a Cody Rhodes Shaq thing?
I guess.
Does that excite me as a wrestling fan at all? Not even. No, God, no. Not even remotely. That being said, it's going to get them a lot of attention on TNT. Definitely. It'll get them some mainstream press. Warner Media, who needs something. They've had such a bad year. Like, they need something, and that can help them. So I could see them trying to do like Mike Tyson and Steve Austin, I thought was a stupid idea when I was in high school. I was way wrong. So
yeah, that worked out pretty well.
That worked out pretty good. And I'm not saying that Mike Tyson is Shaq, but they can do. There's something like using WWE's been really good at this over the years. Is they not always, but when I don't even know if more often than not, but they've got a good track record with using celebrities properly. better than anyone else in pro wrestling. So this is going to be on AEW. The Mike Tyson thing didn't get them a lot of attention, mainly because it just came off like a knockoff of 20 years ago WWE. Like, it was literally the same damn thing. So I think this time I want to see how they handle this coming into the new year. I don't know. I'm bullish on this. I don't know what to think about it. Like, I'm questioning.
Yeah, the Shaq thing doesn't do anything for me. Shaq versus the Big Show, that was exciting at the time. Like
that didn't even excite me that much.
Well, I think I like seeing big guys fight. Like those two are huge.
Yeah, they're huge.
And I just wanted to see what Shaq could do. I think that's what it is. I was more curious to see what does he have. Like, what can you do anything? Are you going to leapfrog him? Because that would have been impressive.
Yeah, he's a big dude. I mean, it's going to be less impressive with Cody Rhodes, and Cody's not like Cody's a good worker. No, he's not small, but he's not like I don't know if Cody can carry Shaq to a good match. Like, I know he's a better worker. He's a better worker than he was in WWE. Like, he's improved. His time on the Indies, his time in New Japan really worked. Like, I remember I was sitting in the crowd at All In, and I was like, this Cody Aldis match. I like the idea of Cody Rhodes more than I like Cody Rhodes. And, like, that wound up being the best match on the show. So, I mean, like, he really did find a way to work with himself. But against Shaq, who I think his only wrestling stuff was, I think he was in a Battle Royal at WrestleMania years ago. I don't know, man. That's a tall order. Pardon the pun.
Touche. Good pun. And, yeah, I agree. So, maybe, and look, it doesn't have to lead to a match. I'm also hoping that it leads to no more of Brandy Rhodes, whatever she decided to do to what's her name? Jade? Is that the
Jade Cargill? She's a cosplayer actually. Who you should see her on Instagram. She does a Storm cosplay that's phenomenal.
Oh wow!
Like, she's a stunning woman. She's ripped to shreds.
She's very ripped.
Yeah, scary. Like, and I thought her promo was pretty good. Like, I mean, for someone's first time, like, you're out there on live TV with, like you said, the face of the company. I thought she held her own. I think people are like,
oh, she did fine.
I've seen people be like harsh on her, and I'm like, what the hell is wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of potential with her. As long as we're on Brandy, let's talk about kind of the negatives of AEW in 2020. I don't like to dogpile on Brandy. I think a lot of people do. I think the problem with Brandy is that she hasn't found herself, and like, we have to keep watching her try to find herself. Nobody else other than Cody Rhodes' wife, who, she's really pretty. She's got talent she had talent as a ring announcer. Like, her New Japan stuff with her husband was phenomenal. The package of the two of them was great. When she was just like an obnoxious heel manager, she was like the anti-Miss Elizabeth. She was great in New Japan. But here in AEW, she's had 4 different parts. She's had 4 different, like, character shifts.
Yeah, it's been
I'm not over-exaggerating.
I know. She's been a heel. She's been a face.
Yeah. They did this tag team with Allie that went nowhere. And, like, we had to pretend that Allie wasn't married to the Blade forever. And they finally figured that out. And they had a really kick-ass Bunkhouse Stampede match last week on Dynamite. That was actually really good. And Allie went through a table. So, I mean, like, but again, Brandy wasn't involved. Like, she was a centerpiece. She was like, that was like her angle all summer. And I'm glad it's over, but like, she wasn't even involved in the end. Like, it's just so, Brandy's booking, it's so bizarre. But I think a lot of people say that that's the problem with the AEW women's division, and I don't think that's the problem with the AEW women's division. Like, she kind of does her own thing, and it just doesn't work. Like, her best role is just serving next to Cody and being his evil manager. Like, it works, and whenever Cody does make that step back in heel, she's got to be with him, because it works better. Like, the package works really, really well. The women's, I know you want to talk about the AEW women's division, so I'll let you go off on it before I'll throw some fire on it, because I don't hate it as much as everybody else does.
So here's the thing. The Sheeta match that she had with Nyla Rose, I loved when she hit the big Falcon Arrow, went for the pin and pulled her head up, and that grin she had on her face was I see. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with this dominant champion who looks like she could kill you. Like, she's not Riho. Like, there's a big difference between her and Riho.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You know what I mean? And she's a solid worker. She's been able to have good matches with everybody she's worked with.
Yeah.
This is how you build a division. You know, that's not going to happen overnight, but this is how you build a division. She has credibility. You know, Nyla Rose to me is like, she's like the Big Show. She's like their Big Show in the women's division. She's just the giant who takes losses to anybody. She got her title win now just to say she's a former champion.
Yeah. I think you've hit it on the net better than everybody else. Like, I know, and I got friends that do this. They take out the stopwatch whenever the AEW women are around. They're like, only got 2 minutes. And there's a part, and I'm going to be real at the moment. Like, part of what made ECW work was Paul Heyman was smart enough to hide people's weaknesses and protect their strengths, right? Like, if they couldn't do something, you never saw them do anything. Like, 9/11, or 911, if you want to call him, was a terrible worker, but he could choke slam people. And all they had him do was go out there and choke slam people, and people would go batshit. But when WCW signed him and had him in matches, he was fucking awful. He was absolutely awful. I think that AEW's women's division is similar to this, where, like, there's not a lot of really good workers there right now. Like, they banked on using the Joshi people, like the Joshi performers, your Rihos, your Yuka Sakazaki's, Emi Sakura, them. They wanted it to be, and Kenny Omega said this, they wanted it to be like WCW's cruiserweight division in the mid-90s when they were bringing in all the luchadors and all the guys from Japan. So so that part of the show looked and felt different than the rest of it. And it did. That's one of the most fondly remembered stuff of the Nitro era. Now imagine if a pandemic hit in the middle of 1996, and all of a sudden you didn't have Rey Mysterio, Psicosis, La Parka, Jushin Liger anymore, right? And you were left with Brad Armstrong and, Jerry Lynn was awesome, but nobody, but JL, like, nobody cared about him, you know? Like,
Dean Malenko. You would have had
Dean Malenko, and that's a good point. You would have had Dean Malenko, Brad Armstrong, and everybody else would have been, like, out of the company, right? Because you wouldn't have gotten Chris Jericho, like, you wouldn't have gotten, Benoit refused to work as a cruiserweight. So I think that's kind of where you are, is they went all in on trying to make this like a Joshi division with some random people. And then you lose Britt Baker, who became your most over female character with a great heel turn. And you lose Chris Statlander, who was really building herself as your up and coming project star. Mm-hmm. That killed the division. So, I mean, like, Riho hasn't had a chance to work matches, and a lot of the women that were left over weren't ready. Like, I think Big Swole has a ton of personality and, great potential, but she's not there yet. Same with, like, Penelope Ford. Her and Shida had a great match at, what was it? Was it All Out? I forget. I forget when the show was, but her and Penelope Ford had a really good match. But Penelope Ford, same deal, like, rough around the edges. They're trying, but I think they're just putting a bunch of women's matches on that aren't as good as what else is going on exposes the division more than it helps it.
And that's why. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was saying bad wrestling doesn't, like, I don't say bad wrestling, but, like, mediocre wrestling isn't gonna help. And again, some people are like, oh, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm like, yes and no. Like, you're not gonna, like, when you're in a ratings war, which you really kind of are. Like, you can't just intentionally throw out stuff that isn't gonna be good, just to say you did it, just to score, like, points. It doesn't work.
And that's why like I'm a little bit more optimistic about the division, because Shida is being built as this kind of monster right now, and, like, it's okay to have that. And, like, it's like you said, like, how Paul Heyman would do it. If you don't have anything going, then show what you do have. Show segments with Britt Baker where she can just show off her personality and have these quick matches where she's going over strong. Build her up. You've got Shida, who's still looking strong, can get good matches out of everybody, and then you build them to their collision course. They've done a good job with the NWA women's title.
I was just going to say that. They brought in Serena Deeb, and there was rumors that Thunder Rosa was going to jump to WWE. Apparently that didn't happen because she was back on AEW this week, and her and Deeb and Rosa are going to wrestle this week on Dynamite for the NWA women's title. They've been a breath of fresh air for the division. One thing interesting is they have Rosa's going to wrestle Lindsay Snow this week on Dynamite. Have you seen Lindsay Snow?
I have not.
She's a Kaiju Power is her Twitter handle. Like, she's like 5'2", blonde woman with dreadlocks and like just tatted up all over the place. Like, really good looking, but this really crazed look, like this really crazy look too. And she's really good. She was featured heavily at Bloodsport, that show I talked about that Moxley headlined about a month ago. And she's good. So I'm like, okay, this is something. Don't Ben Carter this and let her get away, because she had done some appearances with WWE too. Like, this is interesting. Like, this is someone. Layla Hirsch is another one who was on Bloodsport who has been doing stuff with them. She's really good as well. Unique, has a big amateur background. Like, you can't just expect to sign like all these great independent women's workers, because the best ones are in Impact right now, so it's not good. So you have to build up. And I do think that they've done a good job, with their recruiting. I'll talk about that in a second. But like, this is someone you got to sign. And when Rosa's contract is done with the NWA, you got to go all in. You have to go all in.
You gotta open the bank up a little bit for Rosa. Like, she's somebody else that you can really build around, like you're doing with Sheeta, man. Like, she could be a face of the division. And then when you get all these people back, like, you have that's a solid division.
Right, because that's what worked with WCW. Is you had Dean Malenko out there working with Psychosis, and then you bring in Rey Mysterio, and then you had like Juventud out there, and then occasionally you bring in Jushin Liger and Shinjiro Otani. Like, and then it was the mixture of those guys working with your Dean Malenkos, working with Chris Jericho, working with Brad Armstrong, that you had all these great matches because you were mixing styles, right? Yep. And their idea was good. The execution has been off because of a lot of reasons that were out of their hand. I mean, like, I don't want them to try to mirror the WWE women's division. They shouldn't do that. They shouldn't try to mirror the NXT women's division, because they can't. Can't do it. They have to be something different. So these are all steps in the right direction. Rosa, I think, is a game changer. She is someone unique, great look, legitimate. She's a real MMA fighter. Like, she brings an air of confidence and like attitude with her that like you could build around. She could be your top star. Her and Britt Baker, they've been sniping each other on Twitter. That's a money feud to me.
Definitely.
Because I think Rosa can carry Britt Baker to a really good match. I mean, that's something that I think is potential, but we're not here yet.
But that's how you get 2 or 3 women's matches on the card. Like, that's a number one contenders match, and then you can have Sheeta face somebody as a title match. There's 2 women's matches right there.
Yeah, and they brought in Allison Kay to work with Serena Deeb on the
she's a good worker too.
She's a good worker, and that's someone who I think they should sign as well. I mean, like, she's solid in the ring. She's still a little rough around the edges, but a lot of their young talent in AEW is going to be rough around the edges because the indies are just different right now. The indies are basically non-existent.
But like you say that about the young talent, but they have Allie there too. Allie can wrestle.
No, she can't.
Allie's the former Impact champion, right? She was.
I'm aware.
Right?
Were you watching Impact when she was the champion?
She had some pretty decent matches against Gail Kim.
She slipped on. Gail Kim is one of the greatest women's wrestlers of all time.
That's very true.
She won the Impact Women's title on a banana peel slip. That was the finish. Allie was booked. The Allie character didn't know how to wrestle. And
she
like
learned
stumbled
how to wrestle, right?
Yes, but she's not. But she was also in the ring for 10 years at that point in real life. Allie's got a great look. She's got good personality, but there's a reason she's not working matches.
Maybe I seem to be much fonder of her. Maybe I have I don't know why.
I honestly go back and look at some of those matches.
Maybe I don't think I will. I don't want to tarnish the memory.
That's what I'm saying. Like, she's not, and the matches she has had have not been very good. Like, you can't tell that you cannot tell that she's been in the ring 12, 15 years. Like, I'm gonna be real. Like, I like Allie. I think that she's not as good as people remember her to be. And then because when you get a chance to work with people like Gail Kim, you're gonna look good because Gail Kim is a once in a generation talent. Like, I think she's one of the greatest U.S. women's wrestlers of all time, and is really underrated in the grand scheme of things because most of her career was with Impact.
Definitely, and even it shouldn't be because, in all honesty, they started the women's revolution
for sure. They were doing. They had some shit booking too with Vince Russo. Don't get me wrong, but the stuff they did with Gail Kim was always good, like, because she was always good, and like, yeah. So for sure, that's women. Like, Impact's always done right by women's wrestling for the most part. I don't love all of it, but yeah, it works. I was going to say recruiting, something else AEW has done real well. People dog them a lot for the Ben Carter thing. They gave him an opportunity on 2 Dark episodes and then a 1 a.m. episode of Dynamite. So really, it wound up being a well-drawing show, but it wasn't like they went over and beyond to introduce Ben Carter to everybody. And his situation, being UK talent on a student visa, was unique, and they lost out on him. That being said, I think AEW has done a fantastic job of signing people this year. Like, people are going to be like, oh, they missed out on Ben Carter. But at the same time, look at who they signed this year. They signed Lance Archer. They signed Brian Cage. They signed Ricky Starks, who's going to be world champion there within 2 years. Maybe not 2 years. Ricky Starks is phenomenal. Ricky Starks is great in the ring, and he's an unbelievable talker.
World champion.
I think Ricky Starks is going to be a world champion there. 2 years might be early. Maybe 3 to 5.
I'll give you 5 years, but even so, world champion.
I think Ricky Starks is going to be the face of that company. Can be the face of that company. Wow. He's that good. Okay. I think Ricky Starks is that good. They signed Ricky Starks, like I said, Lance Archer, Brian Cage. Wardlow they signed last year, but we really got to see what Wardlow has. Everybody kind of dogged Wardlow until we saw him in the ring, and everybody's like, oh man, this dude can work. Mm-hmm. Wardlow's got something. Like, Wardlow's really good. And then here's something that I find interesting. They just signed this tag team. They created a tag team called The Acclaim. I don't think you've had a chance to watch them yet, but I want you to check them out. There's 2 dudes that were indie guys. One of them is Anthony Bowen. They calls himself a 5-tool player. Phenomenal build, ripped up, really solid in the ring. One of these guys, like, how has WWE not signed this guy? He's one of those guys that's been on the radar for years. Openly gay, but I think that's a positive thing, because this dude I hate to be like people like, oh, we already have a Sonny Kiss. Like, no, this dude is not Sonny Kiss. Like, you got this guy. Like, that's just part of him that makes him positive. He's so talented, but he's not a great promo. So they put him with this dude Max Caster, and Max Caster has he's a trainer, creative pro, all same deal. He is a freestyle rapper, and he's actually really good. So they put him together as a tag team called The Acclaim. Their first match, he kind of did. People are going to compare it to John Cena, but I think that's a little unfair because John Cena did not create rapping.
Right, true that.
There were rappers before John Cena. John Cena just did it the best and did it like insults. So Max Caster's out there, and he's got a little bit more of a modern style to him. I'd like you to check this guy. I think you will like these guys. Like, they're still young in the business, but I look at what AEW prides itself on is the tag team division, and I see a young team. You got one guy who can sit there and talk a bunch of shit, and another guy who is really fucking good and unique. And I'm like, okay, this is what makes a tag team work. And they look really good together. Like, they look like a good tag team. Like, just like when you just look at the 8x10 or whatever you want to call it, Okay. So that's another mark. And okay, you guys signed someone else that's good. And then of course the jewel of the signing class is Eddie Kingston, a guy who's been on the road forever as an indie talent. That he's been in and out of Impact a few times, never really had his break. Does the match with Cody. They offer to make him music. He goes, no, I talk. Let me just talk. Gets himself a job just on talking. And I think that's just he made himself a main eventer in 3 months with the company and proved to be a draw with Moxley and got people super emotionally invested. And now he's going to work a program with Pac. Listen, I can't imagine what a Pac and Eddie Kingston feud is going to look like. I'm super excited for that. So I think recruiting, they've done a great job.
Yeah, I mean, there's no argument with that. Their roster is definitely, they've definitely trimmed the fat. Let's put it that way. They have a much stronger roster.
Much bigger roster.
Yeah, they definitely need that second show that Cody has kind of been talking about and teasing.
I agree.
They need another outlet for guys to be able to, because it would be a lot easier for someone like me to watch an AEW Dark when there's certain guys on. I would love to check out a Scorpio Sky match, but I don't want to sit through 12 matches to get to his.
Oh, Dark. What I like what they're doing with Dark is they've taken. Now, this is another thing I think they've done well in this pandemic, is they've taken Dark and made it a developmental show. They've made Dark kind of what NXT used to be. Mm-hmm. Where it's all your younger talent are getting matches and you're giving some indie guys a shot. And like they give guys a shot, and if they work pretty good, and they say, "Hey, this guy's got talent," they bring him back. You know, there's been times you bring in people on Dark, and you're like, "Oh, that guy sucks," and then you never see him again. You know, so I like the idea of Dark. That being said, I don't watch Dark unless there's something on there that I should see. You know what I'm saying? Like if this week I'm gonna watch Lindsay Snow and Thunder Rosa because that is a good match. That's a big match. But most times, more often than not, I don't watch Dark. You know, I don't think it's appointment TV by any stretch. But you're right. Guys like Ricky Starks, guys like Scorpio Sky, they need another outlet. They need an outlet that's not dominated by the Elite.
Yeah, and it's fine that the Elite are dominating because it was going to happen at some point. Yeah, and it's fine. Like they should be on top. And we talked about this on the Showdown Pro Wrestling podcast a year ago. That the Bucks, or at least I said that the Bucks should have been on top of the tag division from the jump.
So let's talk about what's bad, what they've done wrong in AEW. And they prided themselves on having this great tag division. They do. They have the best tag division in wrestling. I think it's the best tag division since WWE 1987. I think it's that good. People talk about the early 2000s WWE, but that was really only 3 teams. Like there's more than 3 teams that are really good than AEW right now. The booking has not been that great, and that's been the problem. Like putting the belts on SCU, I think was the right move out of the gate, and not the right move. You should have put them probably on the Young Bucks, because they were the big stars of the company. And if you were cheering into AEW for the first time, and everyone's like, "Oh, the Young Bucks are the best tag team in the world," I'm like, "Oh, okay, why aren't they the champions?"
Right.
And that doesn't. And I, as a guy who came up watching ROH and New Japan, and I know their story, I'm like, well, they didn't want to put, because I'm like, I get it. Like, I'm like, okay, you don't know that. You don't have that 10 years of history that I have from watching this. You're new. You don't understand how good the Bucks really are. So, in an effort not to be, like the whole Elite, in an effort not to be looked at as, the kind of promotion that just puts, the company's called All Elite Wrestling. The Elite, everyone expected, like, the Elite to push themselves to the highest level right out of the gate. And they didn't do that. And everybody kind of praised them at the time. And in retrospect, I don't think it was the right move for the growth of the company. Because even with Kenny Omega, people are like, I don't get Kenny Omega. And like anyone who's watched New Japan Kenny Omega, like, but he's Kenny Omega. And we don't get to, and if you don't watch the pay-per-view, you don't really get to see, what Kenny Omega can do. Because Kenny Omega is not built to have like a 5-minute squash match. That's not what Kenny Omega is about. That's not what Kenny Omega does. Like, he's not good at it. Like, again, people critique the Alan Angels match from earlier this year when Kenny just didn't want to have a 5-minute squash. He wanted to give Alan Angels a little bit of a shot, and they wound up signing him, put him in Dark Order. Like, it's good stuff there. But it's just not what he is. And so I think that a lot of, like, outside wrestling fans haven't understood why this Elite are supposed to be so good. I don't think that was good. I don't think that putting the tag belts on Omega and Page was a great idea. At the time, it worked because they were at the time, Hangman was super over. They were getting great reactions. The best match in company history is probably the Hangman Omega versus Bucks match. That's my match of the year. Is that tag match? Fantastic match. It's mine. Okay. It's my match of the year.
Well, it's a great match. It's a fantastic match. It's probably my second favorite Bucks match ever.
What's your first?
So I really like the Bucks versus the Golden Lovers. Last one they had.
That's the best match they ever. Yeah, 100%. That's the best match they ever had. I completely forgot about that. Yes,
I mean the story was fantastic in that match. So yeah, that's my favorite Bucks match.
Absolutely, I agree with you. In the AEW era, this is the best that worked. That's the best work that either of them had done. Now, when the pandemic hit, they just kept the tag team titles on Hangman and Omega for too long. And then when they brought in FTR really it wasn't working till recently. Like, this whole thing about their style, they're like Anderson and Blanchard. They weren't really doing those kind of matches.
Well, they were playing baby faces.
I'll get to that in a second, but I mean, like, they weren't cutting the ring off. They weren't like working like 1987 Crockett stuff. They were doing the AEW house style tag team. It's like, well, I don't want to see them doing matches like SCU. I've got SCU. That's there. And like the whole build to their feud, they were supposed to be baby faces and the Bucks are being dicks. And now, but then they weren't really being baby faces. The build was so. They took this one match that everybody wanted to see, and they completely botched it. And it's weird too, because the Bucks basically built the Golden Lovers thing on their YouTube. Like that whole feud was really built up on being the Elite, and it worked great. But when given the chance to book themselves in this quote unquote dream match with FTR, it was terrible. It made no sense.
It was backwards.
It was completely backwards. And like now they're in a place. I'm of the mind now that if we're in a more open place, I would say send FTR to like some other promotion for like 5 months, 3 4 months. Just get them away from the Young Bucks for a little bit, and then bring them back and then start over again. Because I don't say you cut bait on the FTR, but it just didn't work, and it made no sense. Like, and the real problem with that is the main tag team story was so tied up in Hangman and the Elite, specifically the whole Elite and FTR, that it completely derailed the rest of the division. Like, and again, the COVID doesn't help because the Lucha Brothers, for the most part, were, Penta couldn't get in the country for most of the year. So you had Rey Fenix. They didn't really do much with him when he was around. He was having good matches, and then
they didn't do much with Pride and Powerful either.
No, they're in a weird spot because they're with Jericho, right? Excuse me. So they're in like the big what do you call it match? The Stadium Stampede, huge match. Big focus of the company. So they're with like supposedly the top guy, but they aren't really doing anything with them until they had that feud with the Best Friends that worked out pretty damn good. It was a great undercard feud that ended in a fantastic parking lot brawl, one of the best just pure brawl matches I've ever seen. It was so good. And then coming out of it, neither team, like, this is disappointing. Coming out of that, neither team felt hot. Like, because FTR was doing this whole brush with greatness thing that didn't make any sense and built up to a match that was way colder than what you just had with Best Friends and Proud and Powerful. Like the quote unquote little mini feud they had with FTR, way colder.
Yeah,
and it's been frustrating because, like, again, maybe if they have this other show, I almost want the entire the focus of that show to be like the tag team division, because then it takes it away from Dynamite altogether. That's probably not going to happen. But if I was booking, I'd say like 70-30 tag team on this show. Because that was what the division. This is what the company's supposed to be about, is tag teams. And like, because of the weird booking of the division, it hasn't worked. Like, and a lot of people say, "Oh, the inmates run the asylum," and other people are like, "Well, no, Tony Khan signs off on everything." And it's like, oh, you can't book them all. Not every program's going to be great. I understand that, but this you got to take the L when the L is there. And I would give that AEW tag division an L right now. Like, I don't think it's in as good a spot as it was a year ago. Hopefully, now that the Bucks are in, they're bringing in Top Flight, a really good indie tag team. Airwolf, and I'm blanking on his brother's name. Like, two brothers out of Minneapolis that I saw Airwolf wrestle in MLW. He's super, super talented. I'm looking forward to a nice, good, high-flying match. But again, too, with like Private Party, like, they really haven't. They've been with Matt Hardy, but it's just been. I don't know. It's just been like very unfocused.
I wonder why. See, and that's why it's hard to book a feud when the baby faces win the first match, and one of them has an injury, has a torn MCL. Like, why wouldn't you just have? They have an out. I don't understand why you wouldn't just have FTR. Like, beat them. Like, there's an out right there, and you build the baby faces back up. Like, that's just classic storytelling to me.
Does he have a torn MCL? Or is that Matt Jackson? People say the Bucks can't work. They never sell. That's complete bullshit. Matt Jackson worked a back injury in New Japan for 18 months.
For the entire time he was there.
Right. Matt Jackson was working back injuries the entire time. So people will say that, like, you just watch GIFs. Like, you don't actually watch matches. The Bucks are really good. They sell. They know how to do the babyface and the heel thing. So, like, bullshit. So that's why I hear this and I'm like, I'm watching them move around. I'm like, I don't know. It's possible. It's also possible they take the tag team titles off them right away.
I think that's what you do. I think that's going to be the move where you're like, okay, I didn't see that coming, because I think most people are expecting the Bucks to have a pretty long reign and expect Kenny to win. So it's, the elite all have the titles.
Yes, and again, maybe AEW is really pretty good at delivering like what you expect them to, because sometimes what you expect is what should be done. Just because it's quote unquote predictable doesn't mean it's not what should be done. Like I think sometimes wrestling fans work themselves into the whole, it's swerve. You got to swerve them sometimes, and then you wind up with Vince Russo stuff where nothing makes sense, where characters have no motivation. So that being said, if Matt Jackson does have a legit injury, I think they should. I think that he should lose. And if I'm booking, I put him on Proud and Powerful. That's what I would do. But I don't think they're Proud and Powerful. I think they're just Santana and Ortiz, which is good because that's a stupid name. That's what I would do. But I mean, I don't know what the hell. Like as far as what else is doing wrong, everything MJF has done this year has sucked. It's been fucking terrible.
Yeah, MJF. That's a guy a year ago.
Yep.
We were talking about this dude was probably going to be champion at this point in time. Yeah, and probably a year ago we would have thought he would be champion by now.
I didn't think he was going to be champion. I thought he would have whatever. When we didn't know what the team. I thought he might be whatever because he's just so young. He's like 24, 25, something like that. I thought he might have what became the TNT title, like the undercard title.
Okay, fair enough. I'll give you that. Or at the least, I figured he'd be like right on the cusp. We'd be waiting on him to enter the title feud.
He kind of was. Like he was out the first part of the COVID, and then he came back. And he had that match with Jungle Boy, that was just fantastic. The Cody match, Cody's worst match in the company was with MJF. Now you can chalk that up to MJF. People always say MJF's not that good in the ring. Like I've always thought he was better than people give him credit for. He had a fantastic match with Jungle Boy.
Jungle Boy's really good too.
Jungle Boy is really good. He's still finding himself though, really. Like Jungle Boy's got to take another step personality wise. He's also on the cusp, but like he's kind of like even from where he was a year ago. Not much going back, not much going forward. He's kind of in a push. He's been passed up by some of the other younger talent. MJF, he got his opportunity at the World Championship with Moxley at All Out, and everything about it was just terrible. Like MJF was like doing it as a political campaign, like kind of redoing the EC3 from 2015 stuff from Impact, and then he was cutting like Vince Russo style worked shoots about John Moxley being Hulk Hogan, and he's lying on his back, cutting like, I'm not going to lie down for you, John. And it was just like, I'm like, what are we doing here? And Moxley had this look on his face the whole time during the feud where he's just like, I don't get it. And then they brought Mark Sterling, pretty good little journeyman wrestler. Him as a lawyer worked, but I mean, like, they gave him like 15 minutes to fight Moxley on the go home show. And finally, when MJF busted Moxley up with the ring, like now we had something. Like, all right, okay, it took us 6 weeks, but we finally had something. But that entire feud was a complete disaster. They still did it on all right buy rate, and people were like, oh, he should go over Moxley. I'm like, you people are stupid. Like, you listen to what you're saying. Everything MJF is doing right now is bad, and it's not drawing. Like, if you looked at MJF's, like, what he was doing at the time, it was not like audiences were responding to it. And I don't put that on Moxley, because everything else Moxley's done has done really well.
Mox was way too big for MJF at the time. Looking back at it, he was way too big for him.
He ate him alive. Yeah. And the match was pretty damn good, because John Moxley is a really good professional wrestler, right? And it just, like, I heard people saying, oh, MJF should have gone over. I'm like, that is the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard in my life. Like, because like you said, in retrospect, you look and go, oh, yeah, he's not ready for the championship. And again, because we're wrestling fans, we're always looking for the next thing. We're looking for the next thing. We're never, like, in the moment realizing when something pretty good is going on. It's always, like, what is next? So that drives me nuts about wrestling fans. But it didn't work. I mean, like, a month ago, can you tell me right now MJF should be the AEW World Champion? Absolutely not. And then you go on to what he's done with Chris Jericho. Terrible. Everything about this is stupid.
Very like, WWE light.
Oh my God, is it WWE light? And again, I'm perfectly fine, because you're going to get that with Jericho, right? Jericho came up in that system for 2 decades. Like, that stuff was programmed into his brain, and he's had a lot of success doing it. So I can't fault him for going to what he knows, right? But the dance-off thing, it didn't draw. It lost viewers. And, like, they've had a hard time, like, it was like that was a killer for a lot of people. And I was on the mind like, well, let's see how it draws. Because a lot of times the stuff I think that Jericho does is stupid, draws a lot. And like it'll get good ratings and people, and I'm usually wrong. So I just like, okay, let's see what it does. Let's see what it does. Oh, it did shit, and it lost viewers. You know, and they're like, oh, it was my favorite part is MJF coming out and saying, oh, it was in the demo, we did the 5th best rating of the night. And I'm like, you're bragging about being the 5th? Like,
well, it's the demo,
best?
so, you know, the demo, you're allowed to do that.
The 5th best, the 5th highest rated thing in the demo? Come on, man. Like, it didn't work. And, like, the match with Jericho was very, and, like, I watched this one, and I'm, at one time, I was a huge Jericho fan. I'm not, him being him has turned me off of him lately, so I'm trying not to judge this based on my personal feelings, but the match never got out of second gear. Jericho looks slow and plottish, and people are like, oh, he's still got it. I'm like, what are you watching?
I don't think Jericho can, I don't think he can get out of second gear anymore.
I don't think so. And part of me's like, okay, he's 50. So I can't hold that against him.
No.
If he's in there with Kenny Omega, it could be pretty good. Like the match with Moxley was pretty good. You know, like he still can do it. But again, because MJF doesn't, like, he's a personality performer more so than a worker, right? So it never quite got going. And it followed up the at the pay-per-view, it followed up the Hardy match, which is a Matt Hardy thing. You know, you know what you're gonna get with that. And they really had a hard time getting the crowd back. Like it seemed like the crowd really was like ready to really like it, and then it just never quite got there. And they're in Vegas right now, and it's all WWE shtick. And part of me is like, I know MJF says he's like AEW for life, but I'm like, part of me's like, I think this guy would just be like a better fit in WWE.
He would do really well in WWE. Like he would have a permanent spot because he's just a great talker. He's young. He'd be a permanent Intercontinental U.S. champion guy.
He's a year ago I said, no, he's better than the Miz. No, man, he's the Miz.
I think the Miz is underrated, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, Miz is the Miz.
Miz is the Miz. Miz is the Miz.
Like, that's the thing about being the Miz. And, like, MJF had people, a year ago, people like, this is the guy. And there's a lot of people that are higher on him than me. Maybe I'm a little low on MJF right now. But, I mean, there's just nothing that I've seen outside the Jungle Boy match and a pretty good match with Moxley. And, again, Moxley has good matches with everybody. Like, except Jake Hager. Like,
well, he can talk, though. I think that's the thing that really redeems him no matter what.
Here's the thing. It's the same stuff, though.
It is.
Like,
he needs something new to sink his teeth into.
Right. Show me something else. Like you've got an AEW. What I like about AEW is it's very much sink or swim. Like, they're like, oh, the inmates run the asylum. And I'm okay with wrestlers, you know, being in major control of a lot of their angles and not doing what, you know, they're told and just, you know, really putting their self into their work. Because that's when you see guys step up. And, like, everything that MJF has kind of, like, driven has really left me cold. And it hasn't been great. You know, the dinner, debonair, whatever they want to call it. Like, some people absolutely loved it. But you look at I'm just telling you what the ratings said. And AEW is not, and again, it also came at the same time as this maddening election we're going through. But, I mean,
yeah, that's a big point, too.
The ratings haven't like it didn't hook a lot of people and bring him in. So, I mean, like, MJF is someone that I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm not as high on him as I was a year ago.
Yeah.
Same with Chris Jericho. I'm not nearly as high on Chris Jericho as I was a year ago. The Orange Cassidy feud was all right. It was okay. I mean, like,
I think it hurt Jericho, man.
Well, he wanted to put over Orange, and it did. He's taking a step. He wants to, like, work in other guys. He wanted to put guys over. He wanted to put Orange Cassidy over. I get that. I don't know what, other than having a couple wins over Chris Jericho, I don't know what they do with Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy's a hard guy to book. Like, he's super over, but I mean, like, the
once
character
you see
itself,
you see it.
No, I don't know, because he has really good matches. But it's like, on TV, where do you take that character next? And I don't know if anyone knows the answer to that.
You know what I wouldn't mind seeing? I wouldn't mind seeing, and I know people hate the face versus face thing. I wouldn't mind seeing Orange Cassidy take on Darby Allin.
I think you will see that I think you will see that eventually. I really do.
Because that's an interesting dynamic right there.
It is an interesting dynamic, and Darby's got an edge to him, and I like the Cassidy character because, like, the people are like, oh, he puts his hands in his pockets. I'm like, his whole character is a mindfuck. Right, his whole thing
he's
is
playing with you.
Right, he's playing with you. He's fucking you. He's trying to get you to fuck up so he can take advantage because he's smaller than you. Like, he has to be smarter than you. Right, and like, and a lot of guys are like, oh, they should just people are like, oh, the weak shin kicks. Like, I'm like, well, nobody sells the weak shin kicks. They look at him like he's stupid. Like, well, they should shove him. Like, they do.
You're right.
It happens every match.
They don't. They're not watching. They're not watching.
Right, exactly. They look at gifts.
They're not
and
watching.
They listen to Jim Cornette, and it's like, that's not what it is.
No, that's not true. No, you know, Jim's
Jim
my
Cornette.
guy. You know, Jim's my guy.
I know. But
Oh,
I mean, like
man.
they what they did do is they elevated Orange Cassidy this year. I think they're in a weird place, and that's a big step forward. I think they're doing a good job with Orange. He is a tough character to book, like because he doesn't show emotion. He doesn't, change a lot. And it's hard. It's hard to make a character into a star that you can't relate to. And they've done a good job with that. But I mean, from here on out, it's going to be interesting, and I'm curious to see how you evolve Orange Cassidy. The jury's out on where it goes from here, but I think it's gone. I give them a solid B on Orange Cassidy. Like a year ago, I didn't think Orange Cassidy would be in this place, maybe even in a low A, to be honest with you. I think he's more than exceeded expectations.
All right, let's wrap up this AEW conversation with Darby Allin. Let's and the TNT title, since that is all kind of one package in that division. What do you grade Darby Allin? Let's wrap up with him.
An A.
Absolutely.
I think they book him. I think they figured out how to book Darby. You can't have a lot of Darby. They've done a great job of keeping him special. The crowds were eating him up. Little kids are really connected. My son loves Darby Allin. Him being small, he's almost got a Rey Mysterio quality to him. What I mean by that is he's the smallest guy out there, and he moves in such a unique way, and he's got this crazy charisma, and little kids can look at that guy and aspire. Like, he can be an aspirational type of figure. Right, the same way that Rey was. Because Rey was the smallest guy and he could move like nobody else, Rey drew people in. Darby's the same way, but a completely different type of charisma. Darby's this dark, brooding character who damages himself. It's crazy that this has worked as well as it has. But I mean, it's compelling. He does his own little videos to help further his character along, and now they're doing kind of like a Sting thing with him, where he's sitting up in the crowd by himself, looking down on everything, and it's worked. Normally, Sting's my guy, so I'll always be like, what are they doing with Sting here? But I mean, there's a lot of people that are clamoring, man, they should bring Sting in to be with Darby to give him the rub, and I'm like, no, to let Darby be Darby. Let him, because immediately you put him next to Sting, he's going to be devolved because he's next to Sting, right?
He doesn't need anybody.
He doesn't. Let him just be Darby. So I would give them an A. If he doesn't, they built this story with Cody from Darby's first appearance with the company till this. That's a year-long, really good New Japan style story. With Darby closing the gap and closing the gap and closing the gap and just finally beating him. It was really good.
Darby Allin, AEW just showed how to get someone over the course of a year with losses.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happened.
It is. You don't need, especially an undersized babyface, doesn't have to beat a bunch of people. You just have to create sympathy. And they've done that with Darby Allin. And he doesn't cut these intense, great promos. He just looks at the camera, and you're like, whoa. You just feel him. He's got this weird magnetic charisma that's unlike anything else I've seen in wrestling. Sabu would be the only thing I could compare it to.
Every match he gets, it's like you said, the bigger the match, he seems to get better, and he gets closer and closer and closer, and there's this kind of groundswell where you're like, eventually it's got to happen. And then when it happened, you could feel the sense of urgency when it happened. People are like, oh my God, especially with Cody at that.
Yes, and when someone's being elevated, you just feel it.
Yep.
We say putting the guy over, they'll do it in quotations, and then there's really when it happens, you can feel it. And that was a moment where it wasn't like he downed it. He did catch him with a move, but that's how it happens. It's when a guy gets elevated, he doesn't win with his finishing move. He wins just by happenstance. And the crowd's like, he did it, and it feels like an upset. But then it's from there, but it's not treated like an upset. It's treated like he overcame the mountain. Like Misawa in 90 when he beats Jumbo Shirota. Tenryu. It feels like that.
Cody helped out with that a lot. Cody does those little things really well. When he went and handed him the belt, that's a nice little touch.
It was a little Hogan and Warrior, but I think that there's a lot of people passive aggressive like, oh, Cody didn't let Darby have his moment. And I think that was good. It was a nice little because people know what Cody is. Cody's office.
Exactly.
He's office.
They know who he is and like his stature in that company.
Right. So he hands him the title, and people are like, all right, Cody's literally giving him the title. And the next night he goes, I'm not asking for a rematch right now. So it's like, okay, cool. They're going to let Darby run. That being said, an undersized babyface champion is hard to book. So I would expect Darby to lose that title in a month or two and then go back in chase mode.
It could be your boy that takes the title too.
If I'm a betting man, it's going to be Ricky Starks.
He would be great with that title, and Taz would have a ball talking about that title, especially with Brian Cage behind Ricky Starks.
Dude, Ricky Starks usurped Brian Cage as the bigger star in that unit, but Team Taz is a highlight on AEW every week. Taz has still got it, and Ricky Starks has this insane, unique charisma, and like when they're together, like Brian Cage should eat Ricky Starks alive, but he doesn't.
I don't know about that. I'm not quite as high on Brian Cage as everybody else.
Well, when you look at Brian Cage,
yeah, definitely.
That's what I'm saying. Like, definitely. Actually, absolutely, the charisma department he lacks. I like Brian Cage matches. He is Mr. Get My Shit In, but I like Brian Cage. But when he's in there with Ricky Starks, there is no doubt who the guy is.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, that's my stance on TNT. Jesus, what is my brain? That's my stance on AEW.
Well, that's probably the most I'll ever talk about AEW.
I appreciate it.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back. We're going to hit NXT. We're going to talk Ring of Honor. We're definitely going to talk New Japan. We might hit Impact. I doubt it, but I have to at least mention them. So there's that. We'll be right back.
This is Defy Life.
Welcome to the Defy Life podcast. Join JR, Thomas, and Al as they take on topics in sports, politics, current events, family, and more. Insightful, hilarious, always unique. New episode every Wednesday. Powered by the Defy Life Podcast Network. Listen at DefyLifePods.com and everywhere else your favorite podcasts are available. If you're not rocking with Defy Life, what's your life about?
And we are back. Yes, this is Take a Knee for Marvel vs. DC, but it has been taken over by the Showdown Pro Wrestling podcast. We kicked Uncle Oz to the curb. I don't know which curb he is. I dropped him off. I left him. And then I came back with my tag team partner, JD. We have taken over the show.
Sorry, Oz. He's better that way. He would just be sitting here making snide remarks anyway, so he's happier where he's at.
That's true. And I'm pretty sure his favorite wrestler is like Jimmy Snuka and people like that anyway, so, you know.
Favorite wrestler's a murderer. That's pretty cool.
I don't know if he knows any other ones, because that's the guy you mentioned last time.
It is. I'm not gonna cut him too slack on that, because WWE did a really good job of burying that for a decade. So.
Okay, and so before the break, we covered AEW. One half of the Wednesday Night War. So this half of the Wednesday Night War is going to be, or at least part of it is going to be about NXT and whether they are better off a year later than where they were. And the answer is definitely not.
Yeah, I agree. I was wondering what you were going to say about that.
Yeah, they're definitely not. And I looked at just the roster from a year ago. Keith Lee, Dijak, I had it right in front of me. Who else we got? Shayna Baszler, and that just all these people. Damian Priest. He wasn't even where he was. He was lower in the card. Now he's one of the top guys, probably where he should have been to begin with. Angel Garza, people like that. Matt Riddle. All these guys were down in NXT, and now they're gone. And it just, you could tell there's a big hole there. And that big hole to me is Keith Lee. I felt like he was kind of the heart and soul of NXT for a long time. And he was probably the highlight for me for a good while. And, things happen. They put a lot of their eggs into the Killer Cross. And, injuries happen. He got hurt. Then they had to kind of derail that. Finn Balor's done, as good of a job as he can, and he got hurt after a fantastic match with Kyle O'Reilly. So the NXT title is feeling a little cursed right now as far as injuries and just not being able to book a long-term champion. JD, I know you don't watch regularly as far as the WWE product, but you kind of keep up with what's going on. What are your thoughts as someone on the outside looking in about NXT?
Are you ready for me to take my victory lap? I'm going to take my victory lap. I told you that Adam Cole and Keith Lee was hotshot booking. When they did it, I said this is Hogan Goldberg, and I was 100% right. They put both titles on Keith Lee, which was the right thing to do. A week later, he gives away the North American title. A month later, he loses it to Killer Cross, and then he's out of the promotion. Like, the definition of hot shot booking. Like, I smelled it, I called it, and I hate being right on this because Keith Lee is... I don't like that I don't watch Keith Lee anymore. I can't watch WWE main roster product because, like, it makes me want to run my face into a wall. I hate everything about it. And I love Keith, and I love the performers. I still love AJ Styles. I still love Keith Lee. Like, Angel Garza, I still love watching his stuff. Like, I'll watch stuff on YouTube, but I just can't watch it. And I agree with you. Keith Lee should have been the centerpiece of NXT for a long time. A year ago, NXT won Survivor Series. Remember that? They were going to be like, they were the brand that was up and coming, and they started beating AEW in the total viewers, and like they were doing something, and then that stopped. Like, and again, that's the nature of NXT, is that it's stuck in this halfway place. It's kind of like Memphis, where you've got these these traditional guys that have been around that probably aren't going anywhere, like your Tommaso Ciampas and your Johnny Garganos that are kind of like Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee. They ain't going anywhere. And you bring guys in for a while and then they leave. And it's hard to build booking consistency with that. And the title isn't about it. I mean, it's in a rough spot right now. Finn Balor had surgery and he's, you're developmental. He's like, I hear people say, oh, it's the developmental brand. I'm like, Finn Balor's 38.
It's definitely a third brand. It is the third brand.
I'll give you the third brand.
It's the third brand.
You can't say it's the developmental brand, right? Because all their stars are deep into their 30s. AEW has more young guys than NXT does right now on TV.
That's fair.
And I'm not saying anything bad. I love Finn Balor. I love the talent they have there. I don't just the bit of the booking I've checked in on. I'm not a fan. Like, I don't like the tag team division is kind of meh. Like, they put the belt on Lorcan and what do they call Martin Stone again? Birch.
Lorcan and Birch.
Yeah, that's I like. I mean, I like those guys, but I mean, it's just. And again, I criticize AEW for not using their wealth of talent enough. All of a sudden, the NXT is like it's like Vince is booking it. Like, they don't care about tag teams anymore.
Well, they all went up to the main roster. I mean, I think there's 3 tag teams in NXT, like real tag teams. You got Undisputed Era, Fandango or Breezango, and Birch and Lorcan. They've been a tag team for a while, but I don't even know. They have the Fat Bucks, the Fat Young Bucks. I don't know if you've seen them, but that's who they are.
No, who are the Fat Young Bucks?
Who are they? What are they called, man? They're called. I can't think of their names, man.
I gotta go into my Twitter.
Yeah, they like look to me. They just remind me of like Fat Young Bucks.
I have heard that. Oh wow, okay, I see. Yes, okay, this is just WWE. This is old school WWE stuff right here, where you make people outside the company look stupid,
and they're not that good. Like,
no, that's why. No, that's the idea.
They're not that good.
That's so 80s, dude. I pontificated on my Twitter. Do you think that Vince hires Jimmy Yang back and makes him a politician character just to have him get beaten up a bunch?
That'd be terrible because Jimmy Yang can go, man.
I know, but his name is Yang. And do you think Vince would be like, get Yang back in here so we can have a big show choke slam him?
Yeah, Vince would probably pin him.
That's what I'm saying. Like, just so Vince can beat a Yang.
Oh my god.
Someone named Yang.
Don't speak that into existence.
I kind of want to speak it into existence.
Don't speak that into existence, because then that's gonna be on SmackDown at that. Not even Raw anymore. That's gonna be on SmackDown.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Oh God. Like,
Right.
okay, so they just took the title off the North American title off Johnny Gargano, and they made it a joke. Leon Ruff's got some talent, but he was booked as, I got some shit for this online this week because I said I was making fun of Ryan Satin because I think Ryan Satin's a gigantic dork.
Yeah.
And like Ryan Satin cried about Kenny Omega, about Alan Angels kicking out of Kenny Omega's V trigger, and then he praised Leon Ruff, winning the North American title. I'm like, you're such a WWE guy. Like, they know they're writing your paychecks now. Come on. Like, this is same shit. Like, again, he was booked, like, and I think Leon Ruff's good. I think Alan Angels is good, but they're like, Ruff is a legitimate undercard talent. He's a legitimate, enhancement guy.
He should
they
lose
made a
the
big-
belt next week.
Oh, he probably will.
He should.
Like, we'll see what they do. But the joke backstage is like he couldn't even wear the belt because his waist was too small. Like, it's just, that stuff is so, it's so like Santino Marella, Like, I hate stuff like that. And this, like, NXT used to be my safe haven from WWE's stupid booking. Like, NXT was booked like, not Memphis. It was booked like Mid-South, kind of, like, and now it's just gotten so far away from that. And it's not what I like. And again, that's why I'm not watching, because I don't know, it's not what I wanted from the NXT product. It's gotten too Vince to me, and this feels like it.
I listened to the New Day podcast, and they had Tyson Kidd on, and they were just kind of talking about some of the old times, and it kind of made me think about some of the old NXT cards that they had where Tyson Kidd was main eventing. Yeah, and they were fantastic, and it was Neville leading the division and Tyson Kidd going after him, and like they built these matches up as being sporting events, and it was always, these matches were always built up weeks and weeks at a time. And I agree with what you said, man. It's a lot of hot shot booking on NXT, and some of it's not their fault. Like, with the injury, that's not your fault. But
yeah, for sure, you can't do nothing about that. Same with the COVID. When guys go out with the COVID, can't control it. Yeah.
No. But the North American title, you can control that.
Right.
Like,
if you want,
why put the title on the line, man? Just have him lose, and then next week you give him the title match.
Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, none of that. NXT used to be the best booked North American. You can't call it promotion because it's a WWE thing, but it's the best booked North American wrestling show in the country. Yep. Like, I so enjoyed it from like 2014 to like 2017. I didn't really lose my temper with NXT till about midway through 2018. Like, and it's just, since they've gone to TV, it's just been like, it's like they've embraced all of like the Vinceisms. And I don't know if that's because like Vince is telling them what to do now, and Triple H doesn't have like the stroke he used to have, but the show doesn't feel like that. Or even like Halloween Havoc, which did a great number for them, don't get me wrong, but I mean, Cameron Grimes running away from zombies is just not why I used to watch NXT. I hate that stuff. Like, and I hate it when AEW does it too. And I was a big proponent of Matt Hardy doing the weird stuff in Impact. I really enjoyed it. I haven't liked it as much in AEW because it just feels like old hat now. It's like, okay, what else do you got? What else do you have? Like, I've seen you do this before. So, and I just, like, this is not what I wanted in NXT in the first place. And it reaffirms my decision not to be watching it.
Cameron Grimes is somebody who I feel like that North American title division should kind of be built around.
Trevor Lee is good.
He's
fantastic. Always been good.
I don't know how he does it, but he's got this like a flipping reverse fall away power slam. He does. I don't know how he does it, but he did it to like not Bronson Reed. He did it to Damian Priest, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, how strong do you have to be to flip that dude and just be able to hold on?" And he's running. That's a crazy move, man. He's very good.
The talent level in NXT is fantastic. I said, I just don't like the booking right now.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't like a lot of booking in wrestling right now, period. Like, I think there's a lot more bad than there is good going on in pro wrestling booking this year. Again, it's the COVID, a lot of it, but it just, as a wrestling fan, 2020 has been tough. And like, that's being said, the women's division in NXT is fantastic. You can't say anything bad about it. They have an abundance of riches. Io Shirai is and always has been one of the best wrestling talents in the world, regardless of gender. Male, female, like she has always been that good. And like the fact that Americans are figuring it out, like, oh wow, Io Shirai is really good. It's like, yep, she is. And they did a great job with that division. It's funny because I think Raw and SmackDown have kind of Raw specifically, they're not doing a lot with the women that are very good that's very good right now. So I think that they're safer in NXT than they are on the main roster, just as far as being utilized properly.
I definitely agree with that. And they build their challengers the way they're supposed to. Rhea Ripley has been built up. She's had big wins to build to this title match. Even Dakota Kai, who's waiting in the wings, has been getting wins. It has been built up over these last couple months. So, there's multiple challengers ready to go. This match of Rhea Ripley is going to be really good, her and Shirai.
It will be good. Rhea Ripley is a weird case, though, where she was on the cusp earlier, late last year. She was on the cusp of breaking out as a superstar, and they had her put over Charlotte, and she cried on camera, I didn't know how good she was. And that just, it just stopped her momentum cold. I don't know what they were thinking with that.
I didn't have a problem with her losing to Charlotte. The promo afterwards.
Yes, that's what killed her.
Yeah,
that killed her.
Yeah.
And then it's been a hard rebound since then, and she's getting there. She had to change her look a little bit and come back, different. But it's you had someone who was on the cusp of breaking out, who's unique, who has a great look, great presence. You had somebody.
Can go, can talk, can do it all.
Yeah, total package. And then it's oh, let's fuck this up. Again, it's more of this, Vince booking stuff. I'm just why? Why did you intentionally devalue something that was great?
I bet you Vince wanted to call her up, and Triple H just fought to be no, man, you can't take her. I bet you he wanted to call her up, and that's why they booked her like that. Because you're right. Everything was aligned for her. I agree. I don't have a problem with her losing to Charlotte, but if she beats Charlotte, you've got a superstar.
I mean, if you're gonna have a post promo, you'd be hey, you were the better woman on the day. You were the better one on the day. I'm still here.
That's it.
And she could cut a fiery baby's "I'm still here" promo. They didn't do that. She cried. She cried and said how good Charlotte was. And it's wow, that's just going to piss off all the anti-Charlotte people.
Or don't say nothing. Just
don't say nothing.
Don't say nothing.
Keep her off TV for 3 weeks, bring her back, and it's yeah, she's back. And then it's forgotten. Wrestling is and it's not just us, but it's even bookers overcomplicate wrestling sometimes.
Yep.
And you're just why? Why did you do that? I mean, and I'm sure someone's sitting back and no, this is why this had to be. And it's well, Charlotte's not on TV right now, so who really got over it now?
I mean, imagine what could have. And now, I appreciate it because we ended up with Io Shirai as champion, and she definitely has done great with her run.
Absolutely.
But just imagine Rhea Ripley as the face of NXT, because that's what would have happened. Rhea Ripley would have been the face of NXT, and I think we're talking about a different Wednesday night battle.
I don't know about that.
Not as far as they're going to be beating them in the ratings, but I think as far as how the fans perceive NXT, and it's okay, NXT's doing a really good job.
Yeah,
look at how they're building it.
I can get on board with that. I don't understand why you I get putting again, you're gonna lose, and they book Charlotte as as Rick, that's what they're going for. But it's just why do it? Did NXT? It's not like Charlotte didn't move a needle for them in the ratings.
She's no Sasha.
She isn't. Sasha moves ratings. One cannot argue that. I just watched her in Mandalorian. She was great.
Very good.
Yeah, she's awesome. Her and Bayley ratings movers. Charlotte not as much. Not as much.
And it's crazy to me because I feel like Charlotte is the glue of kind of the women's division. I think you can plug her anywhere.
Charlotte is the opposite of her father. Charlotte, she's really athletic. She's got this great presence about her, but I just don't think her personality translates well. Whereas the old man was a decent athlete, but was a fantastic worker and had this personality that just ate everyone in the room. They try to make them the same when then really they're so different in my mind. She's not Ric Flair.
No.
Becky came off more like Ric Flair than she did, but whatever. NXT, they got to figure things out again, man. They just signed Alex Zane, another flippy guy. It's weird. WWE signing all the flippy guys and AEW signing all the talkers that are on the indies.
Yeah,
You know?
I don't get where he's gonna go, because it's not like you're doing anything with 205 Live. Like, I like what you're doing with the Cruiserweight title, but you're not doing anything with 205 Live. So I don't know. And it's not like AEW is like, you know, signing these guys and putting them on TV and pushing them to the moon. So I don't know why you're signing people. Just I feel like they're just signing names.
I
now.
agree.
Ben Carter might be different, because he did really well, and he could be somebody. But some of these guys, they're just signing.
Ben Carter's special. Ben Carter's special. I don't know, like, and I think he's perfect for their system. He's very much like Pac, you know? Like, Ben Carter's got a lot of Pac in him. Like, so I could see them trying to redo the Pac thing with him, because he's not known for being a talker. You know, he's English, smaller, super athletic, and I think he can be a guy he can read scripts, which is that's all they want. Is guys who can deliver their dialogue. AEW is just like, hey man, you go sell this match. So they sign Max Caster. Like, I'm saying, like, if you were to tell me which of these guys is going to be the bigger star, everybody looks to Ben Carter. But we'll see where we are in 10 years' time. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying Max Caster is going to be bigger than Ben Carter. I mean, realistically, they're in the same spot right now. So it's going to be an interesting experiment to see who can have a bigger career, the guy with the big personality or the guy with the hot moves.
Yeah,
I want to check in with that in 5 years. So yeah, right now I'm cold on NXT, man. I'm cold on WWE. I'm cold on anything WWE that isn't Roman Reigns.
Roman Reigns has been great. The Drew McIntyre has done about as well as you can really do, I think.
I think it's booking him. I love Drew Galloway. You know that. I think his booking has hamstrung him a bit.
It's hurt him a little bit. I'm a Randy guy. I don't know why they put the title on him, even though he's probably done some of the best work in the not of his career, but at least the last few years.
I don't think he needs to be a champion right now. I don't know why. I think they're just going with familiar. Like, they're in a bad spot. Like, Raw's doing just terrible business right now.
I think they're trying to hold off. I think they're saving the Drew McIntyre Roman Reigns match, and that's why they took the title off of him.
They're teasing it right now. We're gonna get something at Survivor Series. I don't want to get into WWE speak right now, but I mean, like, I don't know what they're doing. I never understand Vince McMahon, but he makes a lot of money, so it's not my job.
Well, I'm going to wrap up the NXT portion of this before we jump to New Japan. I'm also cold on them. I definitely think AEW has definitely won the Wednesday night war, however you want to call it. I said it on Twitter. Neither show is going to grow as long as it stays like this. They have their audience. You know, there's a shift of a couple 100,000 between each show depending on what is advertised. Like,
and what's going on in the world.
Yes, and what's going on in the world. So this is it until somebody decides that something changes. So this is it.
We need that kind of NWO moment, and I'm not saying they need to redo the NWO. I'm saying we just need that moment for either show where people are like, "Oh, we just haven't gotten that."
I'm gonna tell you what, New Japan shows up in AEW. I would tune in. I would not miss a Wednesday if New Japan just started showing up and taking over.
Let's talk New Japan.
Yes, that's a great little segue right there.
It is a great. What a fucking mess. What a year that New Japan.
Oh, man.
Coming out of Wrestle Kingdom, I was so high on New Japan. I really was. And then they were the first real victim of COVID, where they just shut down. Like every other company in Japan just kept going with empty arena shows, and Big Japan was trying to pretend like stuff wasn't happening, and we're still selling tickets forever. Like, but New Japan just stopped. They didn't do anything until the Cup this summer, and then they just started doing weird booking, like Evil winning
the Evil
the
experiment.
It's been, and again, people are like, oh, it's just a COVID thing. I'm like, no, Gato doesn't do that, man. Like, Gato's Gato, and like he believes in his Gatoisms. It's been a shift year for New Japan for sure. Like, I'm gonna throw something at you right now. Hiroshi Tanahashi just keeps losing. It's been weird to me. I think he's been literally emblematic of New Japan this year. And like this kind of goes back into my whole thing with like Tanahashi. You know, they spent all year with this story of him and Ibushi as a tag team, and you know, Tana's the one who keeps losing the matches. And Tana's on their press conferences where they do their interviews. Tana's saying, I just can't do it anymore. And Ibushi's trying to become God. That is literally what he says. And, Tana's holding him back. And Tana's like, okay, I'm not going to be your guy anymore. Then he has a very ho-hum G1 run where 2 years ago he won the thing.
And beat the red-hot Kenny Omega.
Yes. And that was like the last stand of Kota Ibushi. And I was thinking about this. I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking about how 10 years ago, the big feud in New Japan was Tanahashi and Satoshi Kojima. At the time, Satoshi Kojima was both the IWGP and the All Japan Triple Crown champion. Like, the first guy ever to do it. And they had this big feud with Kojima and Tanahashi. And if you look at Kojima's still in New Japan right now. Kojima is one of the most decorated guys on the New Japan roster. They don't use him for anything. He just shows up. He does the dad tag matches. And, New Japan is so weird with how they book. They're the anti-WWE with how they book their legends. Right? If a legend shows up in WWE, he is going to kill anyone in his path. Right?
Mm-hmm. Unless there's somebody they're trying to specifically get over, he's probably going to have himself a good time that night.
In New Japan, once you reach a certain age, you are put out to pasture. Like Hiroshi Tenzan and Kojima are guys, and Nakanishi are guys that have been. Well, Nakanishi kind of sucks, but I mean those are guys that have been IWGP champions, and they're just on opening bout tags.
You really think they're doing that with Tanahashi? Like, you think they're taking him out?
Absolutely. This whole year has been about phasing Tanahashi out. I love Kenta. Kenta has evolved into a great promo who really can't move anymore because he worked that high impact style, and he got hurt even more in NXT. Kenta just beat him for a chance to wrestle Moxley, quote unquote, at the Dome. I just don't understand. I get it. They want to move on to the next guy. But, I mean, Hiroshi Tanahashi can still go.
I was going to say, I hope you're wrong because, I mean, if anything, keep him in a tag team. He can be at the least.
Especially that tag division.
Yeah.
They have no tag division. They were trying to elevate the belts when they put them on him and Ibushi earlier in the year. But then the COVID thing happened, and then they really didn't do anything. And now the belts are on
Zack Sabre and
Tai Chi. Tai Chi's had a good year, actually. They've elevated Tai Chi to the point where he might be taking over Suzuki, maybe.
Wow, over Zack? Over Zack?
Yeah, well, they're tag team. I mean, he beat Suzuki in the G1. That's a big moment.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
It was.
I just figured it would be Zack instead of Suzuki taking over.
Tai Chi's Japanese.
That's fair.
And they've got one. I'll come back to this, there's already one Gaijin heading up a stable right now in New Japan.
Yeah, that's true.
Not two. There's two actually. Two Gaijin heading up a stable in New Japan. But then look at the title situation. They had this big story for Naito to win the double titles, and then immediately they take it off and put Evil on, which isn't a terrible idea in theory. But then all Evil's matches is interference. It's worse than WWE booking. It's Dick Togo kicking people in the nuts and choking people with a wire. And it's just weird. And they build this whole G1, and they have it's the redemption story of Kota Ibushi. Right? Kota Ibushi wins last year's G1, and he goes to the Dome. They do the double Dome. He loses both matches. And now this year is a story of him trying to become God. I can't make this shit up. This is literally a story. And then he loses the opportunity to Jay White. And now they're doing a double Dome show again, and it's going to be Jay White one night and Ibushi the other. So I think what they're going to do is Ibushi wins on both nights, and that completes his arc. Oh, man. And then Ibushi comes out as the champ. That's my prediction. That's what I think.
This would have to be the world heavyweight title has changed in one calendar year.
For New Japan, they'll do some, but not. We came at this big Okada reign. And it's they just booked it.
Even Omega and Tanahashi both had pretty decent length reigns.
Yeah, and Naito. It feels like Naito's run has been shorter than it has because of the COVID, right? And it just has been rather unremarkable.
Yeah,
it really has. And a lot of that is it's booking. It's not like these guys can't work. the booking has just been so strange. Like, and I don't love it right now, to be honest with you. Like, I think last year was the year when all the elite guys left and people were like, oh man, what's New Japan going to do? And 2019 was a damn great year for New Japan. It's just this year it's just been off. Stuff that I have, like Will Ospreay being a heel, is good stuff. Like, I like what they're doing with him and B and the Great Okan. Now they brought Oka, who was a young boy a few years ago, back, and he's basically redoing the Killer Khan gimmick, and they have a new heel stable called the Empire. And, you know, I think Jeff Cobb's going to be joining them soon. I like Jeff Cobb. Some people dog on Jeff Cobb. I'm a big Jeff Cobb fan. And Jericho was going to be involved with it until, you know, things got worse with the COVID. So they're building up to Ospreay versus Okada at the Dome. And I think Ospreay is going to finally beat Okada.
Didn't he beat him?
He did, but I mean, like, he did. You're right. He did beat him in the G1. Did he beat him in the G1?
Yeah, he beat him. He beat him in the G1 because he had the interference.
Yeah, because Oka came out. Or excuse me, Okan came out and took him out. Yeah, but this is going to be like the real match, you know. And I do think Will's gonna beat him again, and then really, you know, step forward as like the next great heel, like next great Gaijin heel.
So he's gonna win the New Japan Cup and kind of be the Zack Sabre of the year.
I think he's bigger than that. I think he's gonna be Kenny Omega.
Oh, wow!
That's what they're doing. They're putting him in there with Okada. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like, they're going to give him the Kenny Omega push, and I think Jay White's. It sure seems like prediction wise, and again, Okada, you know, Gato's booking. You know, you can see these things. It seems like Jay White is going to leave Bullet Club.
Jay White's the best heel in wrestling, and he is slowly becoming one of my favorite wrestlers.
Jay White's fantastic.
He's great, man.
Jay White is fantastic, but I think they're going to make him the Gaijin babyface. You know, it sure seems like it seems like he's on his way out of Bullet Club, and I think that's what's going to happen at the Dome.
So is that what these interactions with Kota Ibushi are, with him kind of sitting with him at the press conference?
Yeah, he's just being Jay White dickhead, and then Kota's going to beat him, and then Jay White's probably going to leave. My prediction: Jay White's probably going to leave Bullet Club, and then we see Evil really be the guy in Bullet Club, which I think is kind of a mistake because I don't think Evil's that good.
I don't
definitely not as good as Jay White, but I think Bullet Club will not be the stable anymore. I think Empire is going to be the stable from now on, and I think we get Okada. Or excuse me, I think Ibushi Ospreay becomes the next big program in 2021, which on paper I like, but I want to see the booking execution of it.
See, I don't like that because neither of them need to be losing. Like, Ibushi can't just keep losing big matches.
I'm talking about Dome the next year.
You're talking about like the big. Okay, got you.
Yeah, I'm talking Dome next year. What's going to happen? This is what's going to happen.
Gotcha.
I'm telling you what's going to happen. Ibushi's going to win both nights. He's going to beat Naito. He's going to beat Jay White. He's going to ascend and become God, essentially, and he'll be the golden god, I guess, of New Japan. And then it's going to be about the next rise. So my money's on Ospreay winning G1 next year.
Ooh, okay.
And then we have the Dome show, because it's really, I think like the Gato, the Naitos and the Okadas and Tanahashis, like I think they're going to start to, not leave the main event scene, but it sure seems like it's going to be like the Jay White, Will Ospreay show.
How long until they separate the belts, you think?
If I were them, I'd do it tomorrow.
Okay. I don't disagree with you, but
I don't think they're helping themselves with having that Intercontinental title on Naito, on the double title. I mean, they're not doing anything with, you know what I'm saying? Like they could be telling other stories. With that.
I like what you said. Oh, go ahead.
That Intercontinental title could be a main event title. Like under Nakamura, when Nakamura held it, it was a main event title. Tanahashi held it, it was a main event title. Naito held it, the main event title. Like it can be that again. Like why not put it on Ospreay or Jay White or I don't know, somebody else.
Well, to your point where you said that, they're gonna kind of start moving the the Naitos and those guys out of the main event scene. That's a perfect place to use their name value to kind of keep that title relevant while you have the Jay Whites and Ibushi's fighting over the heavyweight title.
That's what they did with Nakamura. Yeah, Nakamura established the Intercontinental title because he had been a multiple-time IWGP champion. and it let because at that time you had Nakamura was your Intercontinental Champion, and then you had the legendary Tanahashi Okada feud for the IWGP Heavyweight title, the World Heavyweight title, right? And Nakamura, who had this big feud with Tanahashi too, is right there doing his thing with the IC, and because it was prime Shinsuke Nakamura, it was a main event belt too. Same with Kenny. Dude, Kenny, when he was the IWGP US champion, it was a main event title.
When Mox comes back, it'll feel important to him. Mox comes back.
Oh, I agree. I think that's why they haven't stripped Moxley, because they know because he's John Moxley, he has value. If you can prediction, okay, I didn't get into this, but I personally think that Moxley's going to lose to Kenny Omega on December 2nd. I think Kenny wins, because then you get your 14-day quarantine with John Moxley to get him into Japan to do Wrestle King.
Do you think that show can hit 1 million? That December 2nd show?
No, I don't, because I think Triple H is going to counter program.
What could he possibly like? It's some of these times I think
Roman
you
Reigns?
just gotta. Oh, nah, he's not going to send Roman Reigns.
I don't know. They can do something. They're going to do something to counter program. It's going to do, if it doesn't do a big rating, if it gets the 800,000, the standard 800,000, it just there's nothing.
To me, that's a disappointment. I feel like you need to be in that
agree.
900 to 1 million range. If you put with Omega, Moxley for the belt,
they're going to try. I mean, that's certainly the goal.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to be going for that million. It's just going to be hard with them being counter-programmed.
Yeah.
Like you said, the job is to just stunt AEW's growth, and it's going to be a test. They're saying, okay, here's the best match we can offer. What's it going to draw? It's a great experiment, because again, you've got 4 months till the next pay-per-view, 3.5 months, something like that. Like, you got a lot of time, so why not? Like, and then you can go back to it for the pay-per-view. For Revolution, you can go back to the rematch with Moxley and Omega. That's my call. I could be totally wrong, and I've been wrong with Tony Khan's booking many times. So, that's my.
It makes sense though.
It does. That's why I said it, because it does make sense. Mox puts over Omega. Omega becomes the champ. He disappears for a while, which is what they should do with a champion. A champion after losing should always disappear for a bit. That's my personal opinion. Because then they don't look less than not having the title. And when they come back, it's a big deal. So you can go there if they want. They can take the U.S. title off of Moxley and put it on Kenta.
Oof.
Or they can. I don't love that, but that's what they're building toward. I thought it was going to be Tanahashi, but Tanahashi just lost to Kenta for the opportunity.
That would have been a. See, that's the
I
match,
know.
man.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I don't understand. Like, you have a match that is, for me and for a U.S. audience, we're going to give you John Moxley versus Hiroshi Tanahashi.
Oh my gosh! What?
I'm like, sign me up. Sign me up. Put it in an IV and stick it in my veins. This is why I watch pro wrestling.
Yes.
And instead, I'm going to give, and I like Kenta, but broken down Kenta versus John Moxley just doesn't interest me.
Give me Suzuki. Give me Suzuki versus Moxley for the again. Give it to me again.
I agree.
Give it to me again.
Give me. You know what? Like, I'd rather see Ishii and Moxley. That was a great match.
Yeah, they had a good match too. Yeah,
they did. Give me something like that, man. I'm all aboard that. Fuck, I'd rather see Goto versus Moxley.
Yeah, I was gonna say, give me Sonata versus Moxley. Like,
I would watch that too.
There's a lot of different. You know what? Go ahead and give me Okada versus Sonata. Moxley.
Yes.
Ospreay versus Moxley. Like,
we're not gonna see that though. They're gonna give us Kenta, and they like Kenta because I get it. He's Kenta. He's a legend in Japan.
Yeah.
Like 2010 Kenta is like, man, that's another level dude, but he's just not that guy anymore. And he's made up for it by just cutting some fantastic promos. Like, Kenta might be the best promo guy in Japan right now. He's really good. Like, in both Japanese and English.
I don't know. I like Jay White. I think his character.
Jay White's great too.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Jay White's great too. Jay White is fantastic. I love Jay White. But, like, I'm just like, as far as cutting promos purely in Japanese, like, Kenta's phenomenal. Like, I don't want to see him and Moxley.
Nah.
Like, especially on a dome. Like, that's like a Destruction in Kobe match. That's like a New Year's Dash or New Beginning match. It doesn't feel like Wrestle Kingdom to me. Tanahashi versus Moxley feels like that to me.
Yeah.
So, I don't love it, to be honest with you. Like, I don't love what, and it's, again, to be honest, like, I paid less attention to New Japan because of it. He said, I've been paying more attention to All Japan, who did the same freaking thing. They had their abbreviated Champion Carnival tournament where they were trying to find the next challenger for Suwama, the Triple Crown champion. Everybody thought it was going to be Kento Miyahara, and it wasn't. Everyone thought it was either Miyahara or Jake Lee. It wasn't. Miyahara wrestled Zeus in the finals. Zeus is this big, jacked up Japanese dude who just has got some good charisma. And he got over this neck crank submission finish, and him and Kento Miyahara had a 5-star match in the final round of the Champion Carnival. And it was like, oh, this is it. Zeus's time, man. Zeus is going to win that Triple Crown again. And then he goes out and loses to Suwama in the 20-minute match. And it was pretty good. But Suwama's in his mid-40s. And, like, they took the title off of Miyahara to put it on Suwama. And, it was fine for the COVID. And they built up, they closed down Wrestle 1. They brought in Shitaro Ashino. And then he beat him. Yeah, it's like, oh, we're going to give it to Shitaro. And then we'll have Shitaro versus Miyahara. It's going to be great. Nope. Didn't do that. Oh, we're going to get it done on Zeus. And then we'll have a rematch with Zeus and Miyahara for the championship. Nope. Still on Suwama. And they did it like 3 weeks later. So you had this interest in this tournament, and you immediately made it mean nothing. I don't know, man. It's just stuff like that.
It seems like it's all the Japanese companies seem to be.
Well, it's actually Noah's. From what I'm told, Dragon Gate's got some good stuff going on right now. I got to get into more Dragon Gate. That's like a more of a lucha based Japanese company, and I listened to some podcasts about Dragon Gate. I'm trying to follow it a little bit more. It's like some deep continuity stuff to follow Dragon Gate. Noah has been the company that's really improved this year. I was really cold on Noah last year. I wasn't digging on Kaito Kiyomiya as the champion. He was a young kid. They were trying to do the Okada thing with him, where they put the belt on a young kid and pushing him to the moon, and it just didn't click. Like, they put him in green, which in Noah means like you're Misawa. You're trying to associate him with Misawa. And, like, people liked him, but I didn't see the charisma. I didn't see that next level from him. So he lost it earlier this year to Go Shiozaki, and Go Shiozaki's good. He's part of a little group called Axis with Katsuhiko Nakajima, and Nakajima is like a protege. He's been really good since he was 16, but kind of derailed a little bit and hasn't found that next gear. Well, now he did. Nakajima and Shiozaki split up. And now Nakajima joined the Congo, the heel group, where now he won. It's so funny because he won the N1, which was ran at the same time as the G1, at the same time as the Champion Carnival. Same idea, they're big block-based tournament. So now he's going to challenge, it's going to be Nakajima versus his former tag team partner Shiozaki for the Global Honor Crown, the world title of Noah. And that's been a real interesting story. And those have been bigger matches, and it's been more interesting. And now you've got Kiyomiya coming back up, and he's like way more comfortable than he was a year ago. And he's going to fight his rival Kano, who's the guy who leads the Congo outfit, for their national title. So Noah, out of nowhere, has become the most interesting company in Japan, next to Dragon Gate, who I'm not following as much as I probably should. So, yeah, the two traditional companies are kind of pissing me off a little bit. But Dragon Gate and Noah I find a lot more interesting at the moment.
And speaking of companies that seem to be piquing people's interest and finding their groove, Ring of Honor seems to have really found their identity with this pure tournament. It's something that we've both been talking about on Twitter individually, and I've seen a lot of people kind of talking about it. It's very different. To me, this is kind of what I was expecting AEW to be a little bit more like as far as the sports base. And the pure rules definitely help with that. But this just feels more like a sports feel, I guess.
So I don't know anybody who ever watched a single episode of Being the Elite heard that a company based around these guys was going to be,
Now, I've never seen Being the Elite, so I don't know about that.
So they're nerds, and they like to be goofy. Like, those guys are goofy nerds. So I never thought it was going to be like what a lot of people expected. I think Tony Khan might have wanted it to be that, but they don't have that kind of talent to build that type of company, right? That's not the guys they signed, AEW. What Ring of Honor has done is they have kind of reinvented a little bit. And Ring of Honor's always been the company that prided itself on high athleticism. Right, never like Ring of Honor TV. My big criticism of Ring of Honor TV is the TV never meant anything. where it was always a couple weeks behind. It was always like they weren't really advancing storylines as much as they would just show matches. And that was always a frustrating thing to me about Ring of Honor TV. This year in the COVID, Ring of Honor has built a bubble. Like, they're one of the only wrestling companies doing a true bubble where they'll shoot like it's 2 months of TV at a time, and everybody's like close to the NBA model. Like, they're just doing wrestling. Not there's, this is what we're doing. And they did it to build this pure title and these pure rules. And it's been the most unique wrestling program that I think I've ever seen. It's way more like watching MMA, where you'll start to show off with some personality profile pieces that are so well done. And like, the guys aren't cutting promos. They're talking about themselves and why they're here and why they're fighting. And it's such
Quinn McKay is very good as well. She does a great job.
She's awesome. Quinn McKay is fantastic. Them hiring her as the host was one of the smartest moves. I think they brought her on in 2019. That was one of the smartest moves they made.
Definitely.
And she's got a great magnetic personality that really holds the show together.
She seems genuinely excited about it too when she comes on.
Absolutely. She's very likable. And I don't know, they're starting to run angles with her, and she is a wrestler, so
is she a wrestler? Is she good?
Yeah. I don't know. I've never watched her work, but I know she is a wrestler. And they just had the Allure come back and beat her up, and the Allure are god awful. It's Ring of Honor's version of the reboot of the Beautiful People from TNA, and I don't like any of it, but I will tolerate it because I like what else they're doing. Like, Ring of Honor has done a really good job of reestablishing some of their top talent, like your Jay Lethals, your Jonathan Greshams, your Dalton Castles.
Yes, now that's a guy that I really enjoyed in this tournament. I wish he would have went further and faced someone else, but I get what they were doing. But I really like Dalton Castle.
Yeah, I got to be a big fan of him last year. He's an amateur wrestling guy. I love his work. He's been hurt. I thought he would be in WWE by now, just based on his big personality, but that hasn't happened. I think it's worked out good for Ring of Honor because he gives them he's still someone they can kind of rely on. And I like that they're going in on Jonathan Gresham as the pure champion. And I wonder how long until like him and Lethal feud, because I think Lethal kind of works better as a heel. And I think there's money in those two eventually going to battle with each other. But I've liked the Ring of Honor. I like the pure style matches. I think it adds something to it. I like Shane Taylor, and I like EC3 coming in. EC3 is another who's so beat up. I'm curious to see what him and Taylor can do, because Taylor was Keith Lee's partner once upon a time, and Keith Lee kind of went off and became a bit of a star, and Shane Taylor's kind of been behind in Ring of Honor, but he's also pretty damn good. So I hope they continue to build Keith Lee. One thing I didn't like from Ring of Honor that I saw recently. I'm sorry, Shane Taylor. My bad. I was just raving about that. Yeah, Shane Taylor. I hope they keep Shane Taylor and keep building him, because I think he could be a world championship guy eventually.
Yeah.
Whenever they get that belt off of Roosh, who I think is still stuck in Japan. All right.
You bring up Roosh. I'm not a big fan of Roosh. Like, I've seen people be really high on him. I haven't seen one match where I'm like, wow, okay, now I get it. I just haven't seen it.
I like CML Roosh.
See, I haven't seen any of that, so maybe that's the issue.
I think that sometimes a lot of the luchadors come here, and the CML guys, more so than the AAA guys, have a harder time adjusting. And I pointed a guy like Andrade, where I've actually had an argument. I had an argument, like a 3-day argument with someone who tried to tell me Andrade had no personality. And I said, you cannot tell me La Sombra has no personality. But after a while, I finally had to relent and be like, okay, with a mask and in Mexico, the dude oozed charisma. In WWE, with his real face, something seems to be missing. And I think a lot of that's true with Roosh too. Like, there's Dragon Lee, I think is less. I think maybe the mask helps him a little bit. I mean, we just accept, masked luchadors more than the unmasked luchadors. Like, there's something missing from the Roosh package. I agree with you 100% on that. But I like what I saw from him in CMLL way more than I like what I've seen from him in Ring of Honor.
Out of the pure tournament, who were you? I know you said you were high on Gresham. Out of some of the newer guys, who really impressed you?
I like Josh Woods. I know you weren't big on Josh Woods, but I thought he had good stuff. I really like Fred Yehi, but I've been a big Fred Yehi fan since he was in Evolve. Tracy Williams has always been good. I like that. There's a guy I watched last week because now they're still doing pure style matches that are out of the tournament, and that was Dak Draper, another amateur wrestling guy. He gave me big Rick Rude vibes. He's 6'5", carries himself like a champion. He's decent, needs work. He was in the WWE developmental system, but kind of washed out. Not sure why, not sure what was going on with that. But he had a pure match last week on the show that I quite enjoyed. So I think that's a guy to keep an eye on there. The division is built for Jonathan Gresham. That's his style, and I think he's one of the best in the world when it comes to the for lack of a better term, grapple fuck stuff. So I mean, I like that they're pushing Jonathan Gresham. I think he's really good. I like it. It's become part of my Wednesday night wrestling. When the AEW ends, I put on Ring of Honor, and I watch that before bed.
Yeah, this was my first taste of Tracy Williams, and I really liked his post-match kind of interviews he would always do. I think that's what really added to like him, Jonathan Gresham. They seem like they really mean what they're saying about this, bringing the wrestling back to this, and it seems like it's really important for them to do that. Even Jay Lethal's, when he was doing his his post-match when he would win, he kind of had this arrogance to him where he was like, yeah, I'm doing this pure thing, just to kind of get to the finals with Gresham. And that was a very good story they told there with him, because he kind of was he was the biggest name there, and he was kind of acting like, he was like, yeah, I'm here, I'm doing it, these guys are putting up a good fight, but I'll see you, Gresham, in the finals.
Right, and then he gets beat by Tracy Williams.
Tracy Williams, yes.
It's great storytelling. I really like what they've done. They've been doing very, simple storytelling. Like Ring of Honor, I like that they focused on this. And I think what really puts the magnifying glass is we've had this feud from the former champion, Matt Taven, with Vincent, his former Kingdom member, and they had this hardcore match on the show a couple weeks ago. Did you watch it?
I have ended up
terrible.
Watching it. Yeah, it's
terrible.
And it really stands out.
It does. And I'm glad that they did it because I think they saw, this doesn't work. The hardcore, I'm glad I hope they get away from it because there was something about it that just didn't, it felt lifeless. And I don't think anybody likes empty arena wrestling, but I think that Ring of Honor, for the most part, has done a pretty good job of making it work. And I think that the sporty, grapply stuff works far better than the hardcore stuff because, it was bad. They were Taven and him were talking to each other, and it was just, it felt phony. It really did, and that just it stuck out in this new Ring of Honor stuff. And I'm not a big Matt Taven fan to begin with, but everything about this whole thing just felt off and rotten to me, and just in a way that the rest of the show didn't feel like that. So I like that because again, everyone's trying to figure out how to deal with this COVID, and everybody has dealt with it a little bit differently. And I'll tell you what, I'm way more excited for Ring of Honor than at any point that I have probably since 2015.
Yeah, I agree with that. They had a lot of names from that tournament that I hope they ended up signing, or at least hope they use more.
Yeah, me too.
One of the guys who I really liked was Deppen. I don't remember what his first name was.
Tony Deppen.
Tony Deppen. I don't
GCW
know what
guy.
Is that what he was? Is that what he was from?
Yep, he's one of those guys working the Joey Janela shows all the time. But he's really talented.
He is really
and I think that he kind of gets lost because guys like Blake Christian and Alex Zane are the ones that got a lot of the press. And I think Tony Deppen is just as good as those guys. And he kind of gets lost. I don't know, I don't know if lost is the right term, but he tends to be the third guy and all that. And I hope that Ring of Honor keeps him around because I think he's good.
Yeah, and the story they told with him, and that's another thing about this tournament I thought was really good, that each match was different, had a different feel to it, they all had a story. Each character was able to get their story across in a 1-minute video package.
Yeah.
And
they're super well done.
Very well done.
It's not hard to do that. And Sinclair cuts corners Ring of Honor all the time, and they didn't done this. They just let him do some cool videos, and it felt real. It felt like I was watching boxing or MMA.
Yeah, and they treated it like it. And the sporting feel was some of the things they did to make it feel like it was. You know, this guy's an unknown, and they treated it like that. Well, he's an unknown. You know, I don't know what to expect. And Deppen played into that. You're like, nobody knows me. They have no idea what I can do. And I love that story, and the match played out like that. You could see it in PJ Black's face as the match went on, and I thought Deppen did a really good job. He could have looked very lost out there, but I thought he looked great. So yeah, he was one of my favorites. Russ Taylor looks good too.
Russ Taylor does look good. I do like Russ Taylor. I think that, and he's a guy who's been working a lot of New Japan Strong. That and he's I think he's one of the LA Dojo guys. You know, that are training under Shibata right now, and I think he's got a ton of potential. I like Russ Taylor. ROH has to, for as long as their New Japan connection lasts, they have to utilize some of it. Not for the top stars, but for the dudes training at the dojo. Because there's a lot. I mean, if you watch New Japan Strong, there's a lot of good guys that people just don't know about that are working that stuff right now and are super good. So
even like a David Finlay.
I'm not even talking. I'm talking about guys beneath David Finlay, like a dude like a Blake Christian or a Danny Limelight or something like that. There's guys that people don't know enough about, and if Ring of Honor is going to stay relevant in this changing landscape, they can't do what they did in 2019, which is pretending everything is fine. Like they didn't push Marty Scurll when they should have. They pushed Taven instead, and their business really suffered. And now you can't. I don't even know if Marty Scurll's with the company anymore. In the wake of everything that happened, like he was supposed to be the booker, and then to Delirious' credit, Delirious is booking different than Delirious has in the past. So he's evolving his style. They're trying to be something different right now, and I think wrestling needs it. Like we can't have everybody out there doing WWE-ish stuff. Like AEW should be doing, high flying, some comedy skits that are more sports based with no magic powers, right? That's what they do well. New Japan should be working what they do best. Ring of Honor needs to be different.
It needs to be the pure title. Like that needs to be the focus of Ring of Honor. That's what makes it stand out.
I agree. And what they're doing right now is working, and they need to stick with it. Because like I said, this is the best Ring of Honor has been in a while. I'm interested. I want them to get. There's more guys on the indie scene who I think need breaks. Like I would like to see like a Darius Lockhart get signed there. I think he would do great things in Ring of Honor right now. I would like to see. Gresham's talking about building up the women's division. If AEW is not going to sign Trish Adora, they should, because she's awesome. And like these are things that they can do to elevate themselves and to keep themselves different. I hope they keep this environment the same. Like it'd be nice if they had some fans, but they should keep the set the same and like just keep the show like this because it works. It doesn't feel like anything else going on in pro wrestling TV right now.
As far as the pure championship goes, I like the no fans with the pure title matches. I like kind of listening to them hit each other and really struggle. Because they're not talking, they're not, what I'm saying? Like, they're just out there really struggling. I kind of like hearing it. Like, it adds to the match a little bit because of the style of what they're doing.
I think the pure tournament, when they're doing the pure matches, I think it works really well. It reminds me of amateur wrestling in a way and how we hear it. That being said, I will always take wrestling with fans over wrestling without fans. Mm-hmm. Because not every match. I don't think you can book the promotion to be a pure promotion. Like everything is, because that style, not everybody clicks with that style. Like I think you and I are liking. I think a lot of like I don't say pure, but like the hardcore wrestling fans are digging it. But it is limiting, so you do need to do other stuff at the same time. Like we're not going to get a pure match out of Shane Taylor and EC3. They're just not going to happen. When the Briscoes are on the show, Mark and Jay aren't going anywhere. Like you're not going to get that. And like
I would love to see those two do a pure wrestling match.
Yeah, there's a reason why they didn't do it the first time around. So that said, like I do want to see a crowd back, but I do think this pure wrestling has worked really well into the no crowd. Like I think they do no crowds better than New Japan Strong has done no crowds, to be quite frank.
Yeah, and it's amazing what a few rules will do to a match or limiting rope breaks. Like,
I like how they're working that, man.
Tracy Williams has been great using the rope breaks. Like that finish on Yehai was fantastic.
was. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I like how they're using rules not as crutches, but as like it's an excuse to challenge what you're doing. I want to see where we are in 6 months because I don't think this COVID thing is ending anytime soon. So they're going to have a lot more opportunities. But I mean, like I said, Ring of Honor is something I'm super excited about right now. Another thing I want to throw at you is this week MLW comes back, and they have been dark since I want to say April. And they're a promotion that I like and I have a complicated relationship with. Like, they do some things I really like, and they do some things I'm not as big a fan of. Like, I think they tell some really good stories. I think they've got some really good talent. Their champions, Jacob Fatu and Alex Hammerstone, are freak talents. Like, you've got a Samoan, like a legit Hawaii Samoan, on top of their company, who's awesome. Like Fatu is awesome. Like, I think he's cousins with the Usos and Roman and all them. Like, and then Hammerstone looks like something out of the early 90s. He's this jacked to the gills dude who does unreal power wrestling, and he can work, and he's got a big personality. You know, he was in a triumvirate group with Richard Halliday and MJF a year ago before MJF left, and then you've got the Lucha contingent led by La Parka, the legendary LA Park. Like, there's some good things, and now they've announced some new guys coming in. Calvin Tankman, this gigantic dude, this big super heavyweight who looked really impressive on the GCW collective shows last month. And now you've got guys like ACH coming in and Leo Rush. And now I'm like, oh, all of a sudden things are looking interesting. So, I like what ACH has done since coming back to wrestling. Like, he's working heel style, he's working veteran, as opposed to just being a flyer. Like, I think there's something here. So, AEW, or their show is going to be 1 hour before AEW. So, I think that's smart of them. They got them before AEW NXT. So you're going to have an hour of MLW on before the Wednesday night shows. I think that's really smart positioning of them, because people are used to watching wrestling on Wednesdays now.
I've been reading some of the Twitter posts where they've been putting the profiles of the people up, and I love restarts. So, or when they kind of do a soft reboot, not a reboot, but when companies kind of go through their changes. And
this is absolutely a reboot in this case because they haven't ran a show in forever.
That's true. So I love watching a restart. So I will definitely be checking that out as well. A lot of these guys will be brand new to me. This will be some of my first taste of Fatu, and I've seen a little bit of Hammerstone because I remember the interview you did with him.
Yeah.
But Fatu, this will be my first time. The Von Erichs, this will be my first time
seeing them. Von Erichs are great. The Von Erichs are really good. They're very much like their dad and their uncles. Very similar. They work very similar. But it's unique. Like, they work that 80s world-class style, which, let's be honest, we don't see that anymore. Like, nobody works like mid-80s Texas. Like, I like it. I dig it. You're going to see a match with Fatu and Davey Boy Smith is going to headline their first show coming out of the gate. What do you think of Davey Boy Smith Jr.?
Well, from what I remember, he was a solid worker. I've seen a few of his tag matches he had with Lance Archer, the Killer Elite Squad, I believe they were called. Elite Squad. Yeah. Those were pretty good. I think he moves really well for a big man. He's got good power. I can't remember a singles match he's had that I was really impressed with, though. So I don't really know what to expect with that.
I agree with you on this. At some point, he tried to remake himself into Karl Gotch, and he's been working a lot of these old school grapple heavy matches, which we just raved about from the Ring of Honor Pure stuff. But I was at the MLW pay-per-view last year, and I watched him and Timothy Thatcher. This was, like I said, you got to understand Cicero, Illinois. It's very Latino. It's very not Latino. It's very Mexican. Like, it's very Mexican American. That's the big time community. And La Parka was challenging for the world title that night. And I'm in there, and there's a ton of Mexican Americans. One dude had a drum, and they are just chanting Parka the whole time, like during every match, because they really wanted to see that main event. And I'm like, and this is a lucha crowd. How are they going to react to a grapple match? And boy, did they shit on it.
Oh man, because Thatcher's really good. Like that's his
WWE Thatcher has been better than MLW Thatcher.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, and I like Thatcher, but I watched him, and it took a while, and eventually they got the crowd into it, but that crowd did not want to see that style of match. Like, and I think I think Smith has got. It's pretty obvious he wants to go back to WWE.
I wonder what he would do though, like because when he was there, he was in a tag team. So I'm curious what he would do.
Make money.
Well, yeah, he would get paid.
He'll get. I think that's where he's at, and he's a heart still. So I mean, like, I don't think he has his dad's charisma. He's got more size. He's enormous.
Yeah, he's a good-looking kid.
And he worked a Bloodsport show. He worked a Bloodsport match with Josh Alexander, a guy I'm pretty big on. I like Josh Alexander of the North, the tag team.
Yeah, that's a very good team as well.
It is a great tag team. And the Bloodsport show, a match that was supposed to be, really grabbed. Like if you like Pure, you would have loved Bloodsport. It was great. His match with Josh Alexander ended with a Liger bomb, and it just didn't quite click. Like, I don't know, man. Davey Boy Smith is like, I feel like I should like him more than I do. And I don't think I think he's headed out of the company. So I think you're going to see Fatu destroy him. But I don't know how good the match. I don't know if it's going to be a bad match, but I just don't know what to expect from the match. Because I think he's going to Smith might try to do this grapple heavy stuff with this like old school Samoan dude who just wants to bite him and drop him on his head.
That could be a very good contrast, though, if done right. Have him trying to wrestle him and have Fatu just tossing this hoss around. That could be fun to watch
if he lets him. Like, I mean, if they decide to go there, I don't know. Like, I want to like this match because it feels like it's one of the two biggest matches the promotion can do right now. The other one would be Hammerstone and Fatu, and I think they're saving that for pay-per-view. So I don't know. I'm curious. Like, I'm going to watch this show on Wednesday. Really interested. I'm going to write a piece on it for Fight Game because I'm curious. Because, like, I like MLW. Like, they do interesting. Like, they're very much a shoestring budget show, and they get a lot out of a little. And they always have good talent. But they're like WWE pummels them as far as like they'll get some really good workers, and then all of a sudden they're working. Like Shane Strickland was the champion. Nope, WWE. Matt Riddle was in there challenging him. Nope, WWE. And I'm not sure, and I think they'll have Tom Lawler still. Tommy Lawler is freaking awesome. So
I like Swerve too. I might need to check out some old MLW because I would like to see him, kind of being the lead of the heavyweight division. I think that'd be cool to see. So
Swerve led a War Games match with John Morrison and I can't remember who all was in it, but it's on YouTube. And it was like, I want to say either end of 2017 or early 2018. They did a War Games match that was freaking awesome. Like, there's some really good matches and stuff that go on MLW that, I think it kind of goes under that slides under, like, their contract situations are kind of questionable, and, like, people are always leaving them, and it's just, people kind of dog on the product. But I've enjoyed the product more than I haven't. And I think wrestling needs an MLW to be successful. We need more options for guys to work. We need more options for guys to get discovered. And I think we need, like, they do a great job bringing in the Lucha guys. So, I mean, we need more Lucha guys to get exposure. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I'm excited. This should be a lot of fun. The Wednesday block has gotten a lot bigger. I think I'll be pushing my Ring of Honor till Thursday.
This is going to be my night. So I'm going to watch the 1 hour before, because I always do the late night. So I'm going to do 1 hour of MLW on Fubo is the name of the network.
Yeah,
I want to say Fubu, but that's not right.
See, that's what I keep wanting to say is Fubu, but then that's like the shoe company.
Right. Like, that was a big clothing company in the 90s, and I'm like, I think it was LL Cool J owned them or something like that back in the day. Like, I'm like, that's not right. It looks like it, but it's not. Like, so my plan is to watch them, and then AEW, and then Ring of Honor.
It's interesting that all these, well, not all, but some of these smaller companies are all kind of getting not their own streaming service, but they're on like a free kind of app that you can download that gives you free channels. Like TNA has a channel on the Pluto app.
That's what they had. This Fubo, whatever. They're on the Pluto app too, and that's where I'm going to watch it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and me as well. And then the Ring of Honor is on an app called Stir, I believe, and they have all the episodes that are up to date. I think they come on like the next day. So I think it's smart and it's interesting that they're kind of going that route to, to the place like Pluto for the, I'm gonna call it Fubu. I don't know if that is it. For the Fubu channel, and TNA has it. I've been watching some of the old TNA stuff that they have on there. They play a lot of their old matches, which is cool.
Yeah,
to see
I watched that too.
So I think that's a really cool concept and kind of interesting. I'm surprised more of the smaller companies haven't jumped on board with that.
I think it's hard. Like it's not that easy. But I mean, content is king. So if you have one of these platforms, you need to put stuff on there. Like GCW is the hottest indie going right now. But like I watched their Bloodsport show and they couldn't get a freaking feed from the ring. So Jon Moxley cut this like New Japan style, you watch New Japan show and the main event guy will cut like a 10-minute promo in the ring at the end of the show, right? Moxley did that, but we couldn't hear what he was saying because they didn't have a feed from the ring mic because they didn't have a board. Like it's just like, and this was on Fight TV. This wasn't like I was watching it on some joke app. Like I paid money for this thing and I'm like, oh, paid money for this and I can't hear shit. So,
that's not going to work. That's not going to bring nobody back.
No, you have to really love wrestling to watch all those collective shows. And I just got the Bloodsport one. Like I didn't watch any of the others. But like, if you wanna elevate your game like that, you got to spend some money. And like, it could be a losing proposition. Like remember 2 years ago, nobody thought that anyone would ever try to quote unquote challenge WWE. And it took a freaking billionaire like Tony Khan to go, I like wrestling, I'm willing to lose some money for a little bit. Like Sinclair finally had to spend money just to compete. And then, like I said, MLW, they're shoestringing, but they're spending money in the right places. We'll see what happens.
Well, we done hit AEW, NXT, New Japan, All Japan, Noah, MLW, Ring of Honor. I think we done hit all the bases.
I'm tapped out, man. I miss doing this with you all the time, man.
This is great.
Losing my voice. Like, yeah, this was great. I mean, we're in an interesting spot right now because we're at the end of the year, and like we're gonna see how companies try to build their 2021 because 2020 was such a lost year and a lot of just for like all of us, like across the planet, like. So I think everyone's going to try to build into having a good 2021. And, like, you're starting to see people learn to live with the COVID virus. Like, I ain't going anywhere. So I'm just going to stay here in my house and, take care of my family. But, I mean, like, these companies are out there trying to figure out how to give us wrestling. And I appreciate it.
I do, too. And I appreciate that we have different avenues that we can go and, that there is different talent that – is relevant and feel like stars in these different promotions. Like I've heard especially from you, like I've heard a lot about Fatu, so I'm looking forward to seeing him, and I'm expecting him to feel like a star when he comes out, so it's nice to have that. AEW definitely, Cody feels like a star, like we've talked about. Mox feels like a star, they have stars. Darby's a star, so it's nice to have these options. Gresham got made, Lethal's a star. It's nice to have options. I'm also excited about it. I'm hoping that there is some type of monumental moment in some company that we're talking about though next year.
Me too. 2020. Someone has to make a statement in 2021. I don't know who that's going to be, what company, what individual. Like I just want someone to take. I want someone or something to make a step. I want that Scott Hall moment from Nitro. Like I'm never going to forget that. I was 16 years old when that happened. And I was just like, holy moly. Like, I want someone that's going to blow my mind, and I hope we can find that in the next year. Wrestling is better with variety. Like, the 80s were great. Everyone's like, oh, WWE in the 80s. And I'm like, yes, that was good, but you also had Crockett. We also had UWF. We also had Continental was doing some of its best work then. Like, world class in Texas. You know what I'm saying? Like, the mid-80s were great, not because we had just Hulk Hogan, but because there was so much of it, and because cable, same deal, needed content all these like regional wrestling promotions got national exposure. The mid to late 90s were great because you had WWF and WCW fighting for the supremacy, and then along came ECW. You know, wrestling is better when there's variety, when it's not just the same company doing what they believe is the right thing. And I can't fault WWF for feeling their way of doing things is the right way.
But it's most of the time it's not.
I agree.
I can admit that most of the time it's not. But.
Right, I hate it. But at the same time, like wrestling is better when when you have multiple options. When WWE tried to give us Raw, SmackDown, and ECW, it just felt like the same show. You know, we didn't get it. Ring of Honor came along as an upstart. Then they got some love, and you know, Sinclair's like, "Oh, you're a show. We don't have to give a shit about you." And now they're starting to care. And this is just, man, wrestling is better when we can all watch something and it's well produced. It's not just matches on a stream. You know, it's like educate me, tell story. Don't just give me matches, which is why I don't like most GCW stuff. It's just matches. No, tell me a story. Like, I'm sitting here wanting to be entertained. Entertain me. Who are you? Why should I give a shit about what you do? You know?
And Ring of Honor just showed that you can do that for every competitor in under a minute and a half.
Yep, absolutely.
You know, I mean, so there's no excuse for it. You know, AEW with your women's division, NXT, your tag division.
Make me care.
You know, exactly. Just make me care about these people. Like, and you know, I think you've done a great job with Sheeta, but there's nobody else that I really care about. And that's the problem.
I agree with that.
That's the problem.
They started warming up Penelope, and then they cooled her off. Because, again, like, you don't have to be a great wrestler to be successful in pro wrestling. Pro wrestling has a long history of mediocre workers who became stars because of other reasons. And that's okay. You know, utilize your strengths, protect your weaknesses, and make me care. My dad grew up in Chicago and has memories of the late days of the Fred Kohler territory, and he will talk up and down about Dick the Bruiser and Moose Cholak and all these like old names. And I go back and look at some of these matches, and I'm like, ugh. Like, but you know what? Those old sons of bitches could cut a promo.
Hey, man, being able to cut a promo can make up for a lot of faults in your game.
Make me care.
That's it.
Make me care.
Well, JD, I appreciate you taking over the show with me. I got to go pick Oz up.
Sorry, Oz. Let's do this again.
No, we will definitely do this again. This might need to become like a monthly feature of Take a Knee or something like that.
I love doing the pods with you. Like I said, it was the editing and like that stuff that always killed me. But I can come on and bullshit and just have the best time. I like being on podcasts. I hate running podcasts. I'm not in my skill set.
Well, I think Take a Knee can have a little wrestling block. Oz could use a little time off anyway. He can go change his oil or something.
Give me a call and I'm there.
Already. Well, JD, tell everyone where to find you before you go. Tell everyone about all the 80 million things that you have going on as well.
Too damn busy. Best place to find me is Twitter at JD_Oliva, OLIVA. I talk mostly about wrestling, pro wrestling, amateur wrestling. I get into some of my writing a little bit. You can look me up on Amazon or Kobo if you want to read some great supernatural thrillers and horror stories. That's what I actually do. I'm writing for Fight Game Media. We've got a great thing going on. We're different than every other wrestling website because we talk about combat sports. We talk about boxing. We talk about MMA. You know, I'm out there getting people bought into amateur wrestling. Like there is nobody that does what we do at Fight Game. You know, just as far as like the total package of combat sports. So I can't say enough good things about Double G, Garrett Gonzalez, and the guys over at Fight Game. And come check us out. We're growing. We're going to have some really cool announcements for things coming in 2021. I'm excited to be a part of these guys. And come follow me on other stuff. I just like talking about wrestling and comics. Love comics. I co-host SuperheroSpeak.com. Dave's going to kill me if I don't plug that. I co-host a nerd culture podcast similar to this one. Not where I've always said you guys are way cooler than us. So, we're straight up nerds. You're cool nerds. And we talk, about, what's cool in nerd culture. So yeah, I got too much shit going on. I'll co-host the Story Builder podcast with my brother Matt. We build a story in an hour. Man, I'm too damn busy.
I told you got a lot going on, man. You got a lot going on.
I wonder my wife wants to kill me half the time.
Oh, man. Well, again, JD, I appreciate you coming on. This was a lot of fun. We will do this again a lot sooner than what happened last time. It won't take that long for us to link back up.
Looking forward to it.
All right.
All right. Great conversation with JD as always. I hope you guys enjoyed the wrestling talk. And listen, if wrestling is something that you want to hear more of on Taking E from Marvel vs. DC, we are looking to give the show a little facelift in 2021. So let us know what you think about it. You know, JD could become a regular here on the show, and I have some other people who love wrestling who would love to talk about it as well. So let us know if you want this to be a regular thing with the regular Scott, pun intended. Final blow, just, you know, shout out to everybody. We're still on the road to 100, but, you know, just quick, you know, just be kind, man. You know, I know the election's over and, you know, everybody's got their digs in and whatnot, but now it's time to kind of regroup and focus and, you know, you don't have to come together and like everybody, and I'm not going to tell you to do all that, but just be respectful. You know, it's the same thing I was saying while 45 was in office. Just be respectful. You know, everybody's got different views. Everybody's got different opinions. State your case. They don't agree. Keep it moving. Just be respectful. But that's all I got for the final blow. No music this week. It's a somber week. Oz let me down. Uncle Oz, you owe the people a great redemption story. So hopefully we'll talk to you next week. As for everyone else, y'all have a good time, because I'm going to have a good time. And so at the least, I'll talk to y'all next time. Peace.
You know, what you doing on a Sunday?
Clearly not recording a podcast.